Hey, this is
There he
Expanded
is.
Understanding. Welcome. We're here again. Aaron's here this time, so you
I'm
don't just have
back.
to listen to me talk the whole time, so that's a blessing.
I don't know. I listened to the one you did the other night. I thought that was great. After Frank's show, that was like a seamless, solid 40-minute, just awesomeness. You did great. That was awesome.
I do not even remember what I talked about, but I'm glad other people perceived it that way.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
enjoyed it.
kind of
That was the
interesting
one I
thing about
caught.
like stream of consciousness is like you like kind of like retain from it what you do, but maybe sometimes like really like a whole architecture, maybe you don't got that at all. So
I
yeah,
don't know.
how
It's,
things
it's
been going
pretty good
with you?
architecture. They're going. Processing life in new ways, and it's a really interesting stage of life that I'm in. But it's good. It was actually really nice to take the weekend off, and it's weird to go from doing we did what every night, and then 4 nights a week, and then to have like almost a week off. It was just nice. Be with like whatever's around me in life and my environment, and not like the show. I don't know. It was interesting. But I'm glad to be back. Good to see you guys, Kevin, and good to see you, Zach, and Willow, and everybody else who was in the chats that we got so far. Nice, awesome. It's always good to see you guys. Space Jesus returns. That's
It's the
me.
second coming. Well, that's very
That was
good.
good.
I think we need to have like sometimes deviation in our life, even if we do like the thing that we're doing. Like when you normalize something all the time, that's what normalization is. It becomes all the time. Uh, when we normalize something, like it doesn't have the same weight to it that it always, that it can. At least in terms of our own experience with it. It
Mm.
loses profundity. I mean, the whole idea of like profound, like pro coming from this etymological root for proto, meaning new, and found. We all know what that means. So it's like the new thing that you found, really. And so, like, if it's not new, then it's not going to feel profound. That's definitely not going
Yeah.
to happen. So,
Well, and then yeah, and then a show that we're building around well topics and whatever comes up in our lives, and then things happen in our lives, and then there's readjustment periods, and it's one thing to do like a show a week, I guess. It's a lot of weeks, a lot of lifetime in between shows to do life. You're doing it every night or
mhm.
every 4 nights, like a lot of life is going on. It's just takes some time to adjust to new changes in life. So
Yeah, I mean, most
yeah,
people who stream that often have like some kind of thing that they do while they stream. Like you have like people in like the gaming space or whatever stuff like that, right? Like
yeah,
that
yeah.
they have a thing that they do, or like they're very focused around some type of market and they talk about that all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I mean,
yeah,
we
that makes
always
sense.
find something to talk about because we do circulate around some kind of market and we talk about stuff inside of that space. So we do,
Maybe we should live game stream sometime. We'll start whittling down like 1 or 2 nights a week, and then other nights we'll still be on, but maybe we'll play games live on Twitch or something.
There's lots of games that have been developed at this point in time that you can like play with people that are in your audience. A lot of these are like integrated right
Oh,
into Twitch and stuff. So, and
really?
then there's also just the idea of like, well, there's a lot of like more community interactive ways to play a game on stream than just to
Cool.
play a game on stream. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
allowing them to make your decisions or whatever. You know what I
Like
mean?
choose your own adventure, chosen by
In
the
a certain
audience.
way, yeah. Yeah, chat chooses the adventure basically.
Cool.
So there's been interesting like guys have done this to leverage donations in a lot of ways, like playing. Well, there's like a game that's like really hard called Dark Souls, and there's been
Hmm.
guys that have played before where like if you donate enough money, you get to like tell the guy to delete an item of your choice, which like then like so. Ideal
Yeah.
situation, dude's like, "Oh, I finally killed the fucking boss. Yes, I got this fucking super sweet thing." And you're like, "Yeah, no, I donated $50. You need to delete that." You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
there's been a
yeah.
lot of leveraging into that, and I obviously you could do that without donations, and then you still get the engagement. But that's really where it comes from. Whenever you're looking for like, well, a lot of times when someone's trying to like design something new, like research and development inside of a space usually has some kind of return on it, but that usually doesn't stay that way forever because someone ends up utilizing it as a free thing so that they can, yeah, get whatever the return is on it that's not money, basically. Want to make a graphic slash picture with a schedule for all the podcasts on the channel. That'd probably be something beneficial for us to have and circulate around on social media platforms like at least once a week or something. we really
Mm.
like our biggest problem inside of that thing, that what Kevin's talking about with the idea of like building an audience or something like that, is we don't really have any structure to it at all. Like
Yeah.
there's no social media plan. There's not like a deployment strategy or something like that. If we had a deployment strategy and we had everything crafted out for that, then there'd be a lot of ways it would be much more effective to approach for audience building. So
Yeah, I think we just jumped on the every night podcasting strategy to get that
on a
under our
lot of
belt. So like,
platforms,
there's
just
there.
massive consistency will do it on its own. And that's part of the
Yeah.
reason why I was like, honestly, we should just do it every night, see what happens. Because, sometimes that works out really well. So,
Yeah, well, it's like I was listening to several Joe Rogan interviews. There was someone with Kevin Hart, second one. He did one about a year ago that's really motivating. I mean, it's like really surprising to hear. I mean, just surprising to hear human beings being awesome human beings and being really driven. And like Kevin Hart is really on top of a lot of shit, and he's just a really motivating human being. The way he lives his life and talks and all the stuff he does, and this interview is just as good. And then there's watched one with Andrew Schultz. He's a comedian, which I didn't really know about him until recently. My brother actually posted. He does news clip. We did his full stand up comedy and stuff, but he does news clips, and they're really well done, and funny, and they're accurate. Like he did one just recently in the last week on Ghislaine Maxwell and that whole dynamic, and it's
mhm.
hilarious. It's really like I was thinking about posting on my page, but I know there's enough people on there. It's like really raunchy. It's really funny though. It's really well done. I mean, for most of our audience, they'd probably enjoy it. But
Yeah.
it watched full length interview with him too, and yeah, it's really interesting. 'Cause they did so Joe Rogan's been podcasting like 11 years now, and his just
Mhm.
started him and some buddies just chatting, right? So they got I don't know a couple hundred episodes of just kind of unstructured chatting, and then it
Yeah.
developed more into what he's steamrolled into in the last 3 or 4 years. But that's really recent. So
Yeah, it was a much different thing at a different point in time. I used to watch the Joe Rogan podcast when it was like him and Duncan Trussell at their own house in their fucking
right,
bedroom and shitty
right,
webcam and
yep,
audio is fucked up all the time, and they're talking about stuff that they're not showing, and just really like just completely rough around the edges, like they didn't really know what they
yeah,
were doing. They were just getting on there and fucking talking. So,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
there's something to be said for that too. I mean, if you're doing it every night, there's only, I mean, unless you get a structure going, unless we had like guests lined up every night or multiple nights a week, or had again some kind of structure. But otherwise, it's
which
just
is a
built
thing
around
that
the
could be managed. I mean, it's just this is all like a
yeah,
whole different thing than doing a podcast entirely. Like we're talking in one hand like a marketing business, we're talking in another one like a public relations management kind of thing, where it's like schedule guests for the podcast, vet guests, see what they're supposed to actually talk about, gather their media promotional stuff, understand how to plug them, have their logos, have pictures for them, make micro content out of that, distribute that micro content, make sure they get that micro content distributed. This is a whole fucking job in its own. It's not
right.
even like that's not doing a podcast. That's a different job, honestly.
Mm,
But it is part of growing a podcast, and that's why, like, I mean, stuff like podcasting, and really, it's every internet fucking deployment ever. Most people getting into the space completely underestimate the amount of work that goes into it. Yeah. So,
yeah,
like,
yeah, and even everything in addition to everything you just mentioned there, which is a lot of it, and then also just if whatever's coming on the show. I mean, the responsibility for us to actually be familiar with the guest, to know their bio, to have some kind of beyond just like getting to know them on the show. Ideally, there's some like gosh, what's his name? He does Higher Side Chats. That's been around for like 10 years at least now, but he's become probably one of the best interviewers and podcasters I've ever heard. Like he really researches all the material. He writes their own bios, introductions going into them. And it's really common. The guests on the show are just like blown away by his bio, just reading their bio about him on the introduction. So, but
yeah.
he's been doing a long time, man. And stuff that, I mean, we'll get to over time. It's just, yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I fucking glazed over that one in very minimal words. Like, realized that all of those are kind of glazed over in very minimal words, because that fell into vetting the guest. Like, that was the whole thing. Like, that means
Oh,
like get
gotcha. Yeah.
familiar with the whole of their work and what they've done and what they're trying to do. Like,
Right.
and I was just like kind of smashing that into 3 words.
I know
So
it. Each
it's
one of
like
those things
it's
you
really
said,
is
yeah,
a
can be
lot of
expanded.
stuff. It's the same thing as like when I first ever starting social media platforms. I was like, it didn't really seem like very much work, but I was severely underestimating how much social activity really ought to take place. Like, if you
Mm,
really want to build a social media platform quickly, you need to be very social. Like
Yeah.
very social. You want to be like hands-on, going around talking to people on the platform, exchanging ideas, asking them to collaborate, even just taking the time to be like, "Hey, I really like your stuff." You know what I mean? Just to get
Yeah. Yeah.
them like talking to you, get your shit noticed more places just because like algorithms weight your post
Yeah.
higher because they've talked to you and shit like
Wow.
this. Like designing free shit to give out or to post so that fucking people would actually like definitely share it or they would feel more inclined to share it. Like all kinds of things. Like
Yeah.
like there's just so fucking much that can go into it if you really want to micromanage it. So that's why most
Yeah.
people fail in the space. They're like, yeah, I got an hour a week for that, and it's like, well, that's a fucking waste of time.
Yeah. Well, even yeah, and just
Use your
diving
hour on
in.
something else. Use your hour a week on finding somebody who can do this 25 hours a week. How about that?
Let's see. Oh, that this is Kevin was talking about, and dude is finding Andrew Schultz. I posted the video in the Fearless group. Fast paced, also. Yeah, it's really good. Will says good. So you start get into MMA, Aaron, and start it up, son. Yeah, well, not MMA, but I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Nate to get on it because we got. Like, talks about sport. We bought sparring gloves. We've yet to go. Well, the whole COVID thing kind of shut that down. Although we could always do some backyard sparring. That'd be fun. I'll talk him into it.
Backyard Fight Club can be a helpful way to learn about yourself.
I sound like I would thoroughly. I feel like I would thoroughly enjoy that. Let's see.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
Kevin
really, any
said.
project, as Kevin's saying here, like a behind the scenes of the band or anything like that, any project that's large magnitude has just so many moving parts, and really, you benefit from managing fucking all of them, you know,
Yeah.
or having somebody manage them. I mean, like delegation of management is a perfectly acceptable format of management, but it it needs to be delegated. So, and
Yep.
unless you got a fucking ton of dollars behind stuff, then like delegation is an easy thing if you're like, I will give you this much money. We're hiring this kind of person and we pay a very competitive or beyond competitive salary. Very easy to delegate then. You can find people to do whatever the hell you want them to do. But if it's like a charity case, kind of take what you get and try and do the rest yourself and wish you could do more. That's pretty much how that goes. So I've worked with a lot of charities,
Yeah.
man, and like from all scales, like little charity cases where it's like a small group of like three individuals to the idea where it's like fucking Greenpeace and realize like Greenpeace doesn't do anywhere near all the things it would like to do. You know what I mean? Like it does more than your standard charity in terms of things that it wants to do. Certainly gets more money than a lot of charities, but it doesn't get everything done that it wants to do. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Mm.
found out it was hard work and didn't like that, so he quit. That's the best thing to do, dude. Like if you came into something and the expectation was like this should be some low-hanging fruit, and when you get there you're like I'm going to need a 50-foot ladder. Just fucking go home, dude. Maybe like if you don't need the fruit, then go get it off a different tree or get a different kind of fruit, something. Some fruits
Yeah.
grow in the ground. You don't have to climb trees at all. Yeah.
Touche.
So
Some
it
grow
all
some grow
depends
right
on
on
what you're
top of the
trying
ground.
to get. Yeah, I mean, really, like unless you need the one in the tree specifically, it's like maybe it's not worth it to do the whole fucking ladder thing.
Mm.
So, if you're going to try and like get a message, create a space, get a message out, create a space, any kind of thing like that, though, like, I mean, you're doing the thing that we're talking about. You have to illuminate people to its existence. Otherwise, definitely no one's ever going to come to it. No one does anything that's invisible. So. He quit everything though. I mean, maybe his whole life was hard work and he didn't want any of that. He didn't want
I
nothing
can't
to do with that
recap
hard
for.
work.
I'm gonna quit everything and start over.
Yeah. I mean, he probably just doesn't like to do anything hard, but, maybe that's the right idea for him. I don't know.
Mm.
I've been like kind of musing with this idea recently. I think I've actually been musing with it for a really long time. It's just been prominent again recently. It's the idea that like your problem is always like a thing that you created, basically. Like, I only have a problem with the fact, for instance, that I'm not successful because I have a drive to be successful and I'm not that thing. Inside of the space that drive and the stasis of where I actually am, where that space opens up, that's where my fucking disappointment lives. That's where the problem is. But that means that like I make the problem, like by projecting myself out here and being like I want to be something that I'm not. Like if you're in one space with that, it's just like a goal and it's okay that you are where you are right now. But in a more common space of that, there's where I am right now, there's where I want to be, and a whole lot of bullshit lives in that space. You know?
Yeah.
And we like act like we have that we use all kinds of stuff in there at our own dimensionality to say like these are the problems that are there. But every single one can always be broken down like this, where it's like, well, I mean, the problem isn't actually that I don't have joy in life. It's that I'm want to have more joy than I am having, and I'm not following the right avenues in order to create it. And
Mm.
yeah, if I was okay with the amount of joy that I had, I wouldn't have a problem with not having enough joy, you know? But I'm
Yeah.
not satiated. And since I'm not satiated, well, now I have space to have a fuck problem all the time. So, all right, what's
Yeah.
what's really
Liminal
like? Is
space.
there really a problem, or is it just a thing you made up? I guess is the question.
It's a lack of internal coherence, I guess, would denote a problem or subjective problem to someone. That's, I mean, the only way I guess you could really tell. Because a problem for one is not a problem for another. It's type of what weight
Right.
you put on that.
Yeah, because they didn't make that space that you made, you know? Like, but that means it functions like you're nurturing the problem, right? You're making the space for it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So do you change the space or fix the problem? I guess one way or another.
Yeah, but like this came to me in a recent time to the idea of like exploring if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That
Mm,
colloquialism, which is a
mm.
stupid colloquialism, I might add. If it ain't broke, you can't fix it. So you
Yeah.
don't need to don't fix it. There's nothing to fix. It's not
But
broken.
But
So
usually when
you
things are
shouldn't try.
working, they can almost always be improved. It's just a matter of how much effort you want to put into improving
Right,
something.
and then we get back to the fucking sine qua non question: when is enough enough? Which is at the end
Yeah,
of
no
every
shit.
fucking rabbit hole, it seems like, because it's
Yeah,
just like at some point in time you become the arbiter of your experience, and so you set an arbitrary line. You know, you're like, oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah, it's good. I'm fucking successful now. I made $16 billion in this last quarter, and like when I was making $16 million in a quarter. I was not successful, but to most people, that was really successful. Like, dude, you're
Yeah.
making fucking $64 million a year. That's insane, you know?
I
But
mean, it's fine
like,
when you
yeah,
like living in that level of income, right? So you're not worried about your daily expenses. So most of your time is spent in some form, I imagine, some form of creation or some form of creative avenue where you are fulfilling or pursuing the things that make you the most well fulfilled. I guess,
yeah,
pursuing that dynamic. So it's not so much about how you made or didn't made. It probably, I mean, I imagine that dynamic. It's like you judge it based off of a whole lot of other factors, right? If you have employees and things working beneath you, how happy are they? How satisfied are they? How much are you providing an income or a lifestyle or benefit or some kind of work environment or something that's beneficial to their life? Like it gets once you get beyond a certain money mark, it's not about the money. I don't think for even people who make money. It's about either power or expansion or
maybe not.
creation or because it's like 'cause, yeah, I mean, just the
I
money
think there's
itself.
a
I think
good
loses
chance because I don't
meaning.
have that much money and I already kind of don't care about it. You know what I
Right,
mean? So
exactly.
I figure if I had $16 billion in my bank account, fuck, man, like I would not do anything that even remotely resembled what I would call work. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it would all be hobbies all the time. But like that's why
This-
I would never have $17 billion because if I got to $16 billion, I'd be like, I'm good, boys. Like you don't need
Yeah,
to
no
pay me
shit.
no more dollars. Like even like anybody I'm helping out, I'm like, it's free, don't worry about it. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, I have $16 billion, okay?
Yeah.
Like don't fucking worry about me. Actually, you know what? I'll pay you for me to do that for you just because that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah. And if it's
So
something
why
you
not?
enjoy doing, yeah. Let's see.
And I wouldn't do anything I didn't enjoy doing. I'd pay
Yeah, no
someone else to
shit,
do it. I
man.
have $16 billion. I
No.
would never fucking do anything I didn't want to do. If I didn't want to go take a shit, I'd pay someone to go do that for me. I'd
Right.
find a way. I got $16 billion. I can develop a technology that takes someone else takes a shit for me. Like if I
Yeah.
really don't want to do it, I mean, I don't have a problem with going to the bathroom and taking a crap. It takes me like 2 seconds. I got a pretty good flowing bowel, a lot of yoga. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, the point is, like, if I didn't want to do something and I had just enormous, I mean, we're talking, I can't possibly spend this money in my life. right? Like
Mm.
me being who I am, coming from where I came from, and the amount of money that I've fucked with. If $16 billion suddenly dropped in my lap, there's no fucking way I would spend it in the rest of my life. Like it's impossible. The things that I even think about buying would never like I would buy all the things I wanted 85 times over and have $15 billion left over at least and
Yeah,
just be
but see,
like
the irony
what
of
do
that, or the
now?
reality of that, is like you adjust your circumstances. So if that actually happened, I mean, over the next year,
That's
2 years, couple
that's what
years,
they
well,
say,
just
but
well, no, but like think about it through. Like you find ways to utilize that money. You find causes, you meet people, you find things where you're generating. I mean, obviously, at some level, you're generating that in a way that continues to generate money and investment in different ways that benefit. Well, whatever you desire, but also the things that you're investing into. So they're self-sustaining and self-producing. That they're not just something that's because I mean, if you're pouring 16 billion or pouring money into all these things that aren't actually gaining some kind of return, I mean, eventually that'll bleed out. 16 billion can go. There's a lot of places to put money to help people
not
out
with
and
a
to do
guy
good
like me
things.
spending it. It can't. Like, there's no way. I just don't make expenditures like that. You know what I mean? If I had $16 billion, I'd still go in and like check out the unit price in the fucking grocery store. It's just the way my mind works. Like, I fucking love efficiency. I'm not gonna go and
Sure.
blow $16 billion. Like, that's fucking impossible.
Well, so,
There's
but that's
no,
the
for
black.
me,
That's not the
that's
black and white.
impossible.
There's no blowing of it. I mean, there could be, but like there's like everything you're saying. But like you
If
spend
it
all
was
this money,
gone
you
by
don't know
the
what
end
to
of my
spend it
life,
on.
I'd consider that's blowing it in the inside of my space, at least right here. That would be fucking
Yeah.
blowing it. Yeah, the interest, yeah, you'd be straight off of that. Like the only chance that I would have with that is basically the idea. Well, I could definitely tell you from recently, like trying to build some kind of enormous stock portfolio or play with options in some type of risky way or something like that. Maybe I would blow some money, but if I even blew like $1 billion on that, I'd be like, I'm terrible at this. I gotta stop.
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
even
And like I
okay, even
wouldn't
just think that.
gamble it. I don't even like gambling. Like it's not enjoyable to me, you
Yeah.
know? So it'd
But
never
even
go that way.
just the number price. It's really having the freedom to, I mean, the things that open up to you to invest in, to help in, to start Greenpeace, or for example, or whatever things that you actually, because the money is there now, there's an awareness that you have of where to actually invest or to spend in ways way
Would I
beyond
ever
just
find
personal
out
spending.
about those while I was so busy doing whatever I wanted? You know?
Well, it depends on what you want. I mean, I would want to find
Right?
avenues to invest in the world and make the world better, in addition to all the other things that are fun and enjoyable. Like, especially when you have that kind of money, there's some
I mean,
level of
but
like,
make the world better, dude. That's a desire, man. That's opening up the space for you to have $16 billion and still hate your life. Because you're
that's
like, I
true.
got $16 billion. I'm investing in all these things that make the world a better place. Why is it getting worse? Fuck, this isn't working out. I need to try harder. I need to find the right thing. I need to invest more. I need to make the 10 billion I already fucking invested pay off. I need some type of legacy to leave here or whatever. And now you're fucking rich as shit and could be just out water skiing with dolphins on your head. And instead, you're all fucking mad in your office because the world's not changing. Because your
Yeah, but
drive to change the world opened up that
that's
space.
two ends of the spectrums, though. You can have all of it without the self hatred. You can find ways that you're spending, and it's a lot of time to spend, especially when you don't have to worry about providing an income for yourself. So you
So
can do
you're
all
just
the
like
things you want to do.
you're donating billions of dollars, just giving it a shot. Like,
No,
is that
this
really
is
the thing? Because I mean,
this is
maybe it
super
is.
oversimplified here. No, I'm not talking about just like finding places to donate money. I'm talking about you having money to
No, I'm
actually
saying like your
create.
perception to it when you're donating to it. Are you just like you're putting that money out there and you're like whatever happens happens, or are you putting that money out there and you're like, all right, these motherfuckers got $10 million from me. We better be seeing some results. Because if I would have handled that 10 million, we'd see some fucking results. You
Right.
know,
So it depends
because
on
that's
who
what
you
I
are
would
and who
do.
you
I'm an
have.
asshole. You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh,
Well, it
I gave you
depends.
$10 million. This is what I would do with $10 million. So anything less, and you're a fucking failure. You know, like that's what my default ego Zach brain would say. And then like
Right.
the I would like to call it more aware version of myself comes in and goes, you know, you're an asshole, right? Like that's not the way that it is. You're putting this money over here. And if you wanted it done right, you would do it yourself, but you want it done without having to do it. So you're going to pay this person and you're going to try and,
Hmm.
coax that engagement to get the most out of them that you can. But them doing it exactly the way that you would do it, yeah, probably not.
Yeah, you gotta
Maybe
let
there's
that
the
shit
long
go.
shot case that they would do better than you, but,
Right.
whatever. Like,
Well, then there's a
I,
lot of
I would
amazing
have a hard
humans in the
time with
world.
that being like the efficiency minded person that I am. Like, okay, last year I donated $100 million. What did these charities get done? Okay, nothing. All right, you like, I guess like you saved like this one village or whatever. and like not much. You did this, like I don't know how I feel about that
Right.
one. And then so we're just saying, let's say by the end of this synopsis, you're like, that wasn't really a very good expenditure of $100 million.
Right. So you make
Do you
changes, you put in
do
different
you put it
managers,
in
you
the
put in
next
different people,
year?
you put it in different people who are going to manage those investments better,
Why?
even if it's just charity. What do you mean why? For efficiency's sake, Zach, where you're just making a broad strokes here. If you're going to dive into it, you have a portfolio of investments, if you will, charities. If you want to, we want to go down this avenue, you're going to have people managing those charities, whether you started them up your
But
own or
what's
you
the
found a charity
reason?
that you found.
Just because
If
you
you
want
want
to?
to do that, yeah, if you enjoy doing that, I would enjoy giving money to places I know are spending it responsibly and actually helping people. The Shipibo people, for example, which we support, and it's in the links below. But things like that on that scale, from very small, minor, like we could say very small, but compared to the millions and millions to other charities, but
Yeah,
being
realize if you
personally
had
invested in
$16
them to an
billion, you
extent,
could easily ruin that tribe. You know what I mean?
right? So,
Like, oh
so
yeah,
it's
don't worry,
understanding how
we'll
to.
take care of all your problems. 5 million take care of it, and they're like, I mean, yeah, but like that would also completely overhaul the way our society runs.
Correct. Right. Correct. So it's subjective investment relative to the context in which it is going, and then finding places you want to be personally involved with people. If you want to personally visit the people and personally be involved with where your money's going, great. If you don't, with other things, you won't want to be personally involved. You want to have people who are personally involved, and they're the ones who want to spend all their time with these people and manage things. Then you hire them and you pay them to manage these things because you know the people in the end result are getting the help, the beneficial help, not just money like actual structure, the ones that build wells or help communities, but they're not just throwing money at them because that's a whole other dynamic in third world countries. When you have warlords come in, take the money, or like a whole bunch of other shit happens. Like there's
Yeah,
there's a lot of minutia in there that can be very valuable and enjoyable to dive into and be a part of, especially when you're the one supplying it and you know that that is your money going to
it
whatever
could be a
work
big
is being done.
hassle too.
Totally. Yeah, so you choose where you're going to personally invest. That's why I think people can overinvest and micromanage and they're exhausted and they have all this money and they're not happy and whatever because they're micromanaging. We can find good humans or good managers to manage the spaces in which you are investing. Awesome. Then you check in with your managers. And then when you want to be personally invested, you're personally invested. You just find that
Yeah.
balance on top of swimming
Hmm.
with dolphins and doing other shit.
Sounds utopic in a certain way to me. I guess it would be cool if there, but also at the same time, like this is more like a psychedelic consciousness thing. That
Mhm.
it's like I'm not sure anything's wrong with the world. I think there's a bunch of shit some people don't like. I don't
Well, what about
necessarily know that
child
it's
child sex
wrong.
trafficking and things?
I don't know that that's wrong. I know I don't like it, but I don't know that it's intrinsically wrong. Who defines that? Who's the judge and arbiter of right and wrongness?
Oh, okay, I get it on a very, very 5,000, 10,000 foot
Like I
level, but
said,
at the same time,
psychedelic consciousness.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I said we were
I
going
get
on the
that.
high dive here.
All right.
On the high
So,
dive, I can't prove that raping people is actually the wrong thing. And inside of even certain kinds of spirituality, like, well, one of the big arguments against karma is that it's basically a system that could have a propensity to be construed as blaming the victim when understood a certain way. It's like, oh, you have hardship in life. That's the byproduct of the things that you did in your past lives. And
mm,
where really karma is actually more just kind of a story about the function of causality. There's a cause, there's an effect. And if you break it down to that level, then you're like, okay, I can buy karma. Yeah, that's probably like a thing. But then on this other level, even the like this kind of hard edged understanding of karma that I don't necessarily even think is true, but definitely a lot of people believe it, and that makes it some kind of truth,
okay,
right?
so here's here's a practical level. Because, I mean, because like there's not much to argue with on the highest level. If we want to step totally outside of humanity and a choice of like whether you have to choose whether the person in front of you is going to get raped and you're just going to walk away and pretend it didn't happen, or if you're going to do something or whatever, that's a totally different dynamic than the 10,000 foot level, and that's fine. A good example. I think Kevin Hart was talking about. So he's been working with Chase Bank and Chase and them for figuring out ways to create a financial education system for the inner city, which they've never had. He grew up there. He's talking about those dynamics, but they wanted to come in and teach certain ways. Like, dude, you can't have white people coming in and talking to black people that grew up in that neighborhood who knew nothing about the culture and try to teach them about money. So setting it up with ways that people grew up in the culture, actually got out, learned finances, learned how to fucking why you can't keep taking all these free credit cards, just learning the system, being able to go back to the community and teach and educate. So is that right or wrong? I don't know, but it sounds like a worthwhile investment to help people educate themselves to make better choices for themselves and to have
Sure,
a
to
life here
to
that's
you,
not bound by
and
debt and poverty. and those who
For
would
the
choose to
devil's
participate in the
advocate side
program.
of it, like if we're to look at it from the hard edge opposite side, Kevin Hart, a man who grew up from the ghetto, has now turned his back on all of his people and is inviting the devil to come in and spread his seed
Sure,
by way of Chase Manhattan Bank. Which, if you think any bankers are the fucking devil, Chase Manhattan's right on up there. I mean, these people fuck over their customers just like nothing
sure,
else. It's crazy.
I
But, you
sure,
know, like which
but
side
we're
is it though? Is Kevin Hart doing a good thing or is Kevin Hart bringing the devil into the ghetto
so
again?
right, right. But that's
So
all
Kevin Hart's
speculation.
the
But
guy that they're like moving more crack into the ghetto through. You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, but that's all speculation until there's boots on the ground and a program actually rolls out. So it's something
I
you
mean,
look at it
Chase
by
Manhattan's a
first.
piece of shit, and it's not like speculation. There's no speculation about
I
that. The crash
agreed.
of the housing market, basically perpetuated in part by these people. The crash of economic markets, the devaluing of your economy, the driving away from the gold standard of your money. They definitely help out massively with lobbying inside of your government to get a whole lot of restrictions that aren't helping you, but are helping them in place. And they're definitely not working for you, and they certainly ain't working for the people in the inner city, not inside of this
Right,
caste system. So
100%. So then you have
why would
people
they
like
be
Kevin
interested
Hart.
in going there?
So then you have people like Kevin Hart trying to come in and potentially, hypothetically, or I don't know the in workings. I heard one interview with him and hit the sincerity of what he expressed and the idea that I'm contemplating in my mind. I don't know his actual integrity and any other agendas going on, but the
Mm-hmm.
concept in and of itself of coming in and educating them on someone who came from that system and educating them because he saw the need, he grew up with it, he's doing something that he feels is this is one of many things
Sure.
he's doing. This is something he feels is beneficial and gives him value and meaning in his life to educate these people in this way and help them out in that way. Everything he's saying about the banks is true. Nobody was arrested
Okay.
in 2008. They repackaged the whole thing and they're talked about on the show. I forget the name of the movie. They did a really good job showing all that and how that worked and the corruption there. And we know that's true. But what's also
Mm-hmm.
true is people in the system we're in right now. I mean, either you're just going to keep learning bad financial habits till it crashes or your life falls apart, or
Well,
people like Kevin Hart come
how
in and
come he
help teach
doesn't
those
support
programs.
somebody like the fine young black man with tattoos all over his face and dreads who has a quite spiritual wife that also has a large spiritual platform that have created even things that are such good learning mechanisms as a board game that teaches about in-home baking and basic finances for inner city use? How come he's not supporting them and putting their money behind them? Why is he sleeping with the
Maybe
devil instead?
maybe he doesn't even know them, man. I don't know.
He didn't
There's
do
so
very
many
much
people and
research.
so many things in the
He
world.
makes fucking $80 million to do a single movie. If he's gonna try and actually get some shit done, he should do some research about the boots on the ground that are actually doing it, not the fucking spooks that live in the goddamn clouds that have been
Okay, but
screwing over the
who
ghetto
says
since day
who
one.
says he hasn't? Who says he hasn't, man? There's a lot of hardcore devil's advocate with not any knowledge or awareness. You haven't even seen the interview I've
I
seen,
hate
so you
Chase
have no
Manhattan
idea.
Bank. It's not about
All
Kevin
right,
Hart. I
fair
think
enough.
he's hilarious. I think he's compromised, but I also think he's hilarious. And I think he probably has a heart inside of him where he wants to accomplish something. I think with the path that he's taken, he missed that boat. Ain't gonna happen. And he
I
works for someone
thoroughly
else
disagree.
now.
I thoroughly disagree, man, with Kevin Hart specifically and people like him. I've seen 5 hours of an interview of actual, off camera shit. Well, it's Joe Rogan, it's
Sure.
on camera. I get that, but and that's just whatever. That's my minor assessment of a person seeing 5 hours of interviews with him off camera and just hearing him just speak from his normal self, whatever that means. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of people like him too. That's just I don't see, and I get the
Just saying,
bank
man,
thing and
only
the
certain
wrench and
people
all
get
the thing.
roles opposite Dwayne Johnson.
I
And only
understand.
certain
I
people
understand
get
all
to
the
be
dynamics.
postulated around in culture as like their best little black friend and all this stuff. I've watched
I
Kevin Hart since the
understand.
beginning of his career. I was talking about how funny Kevin Hart was before anybody in the mainstream was even referencing the dude's existence. So, and it's also very curious that at the exact same time that Chappelle got a giant offer from these exact people I'm talking about, turned it down, disappeared from society, voila, Kevin Hart's rise to fame transpires perfectly mainstream through all the giant producers and providers and distributors that you would expect it to come through. I think he's very clearly created. Very clearly created. So, yeah.
Okay, and so I understand the society and the underpinnings, which we've dove into at different times in our shows, and there's a whole lot more ugly undersidings of how the esoteric systems control the Hollywood and the media industry and all the other shit and the banks and all that shit. That's all
Mm-hmm.
true for sure. But we're obviously in the middle of an upheaval and transparency and things coming to light and all the even with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein and just all this stuff and there's lots of shit. So the world's getting turned upside down. A lot of that stuff is coming to light. See, I think it was actually, ironically, the interview with Joe Rogan and Andrew Schultz that was like a month ago. So they had talked about that at length, and it was interesting to hear their knowledge base has massively increased in the last few years on those things. I was really surprised at the things they were actually considering and understanding are real, and the way that they were hypothetically, because they're talking about the conspiracies. I think he was asking what conspiracies you're interested in. Joe said the one I'd really like to know is who is the actual deep state. Like, what is that? What does that mean? Like, and going into some facts, they know a little bit, but obviously haven't come across the same information or things that we have, and the people that watch the show and things that we've looked into that more thoroughly, they may have written off just as conspiracy theories. When you look in, there's actually a lot of legitimacy and truth there. So the fact that there's more awareness of that, even amongst comedians, like, I think what I see is the culture changing from those things being exposed. There's a lot of people in this world, man, who are just paying attention, and whatever that means, deeper levels for some of the conspiracy theory stuff, but even the stuff with, like I said, with Andrew Schultz, like, he's on top of a lot of stuff, and he's just watching. He's just doing some research, checking some facts, making comedy out of it, but it's putting that information out there. And so it's creating a world where I think there's a lot of in-betweeners. We would be
Mm-hmm.
one of them. We would say less, more knowing those things more intimately. And so there's a baseline of understanding, we knowing how the world works, but we're also trying to create a transition for people to transition into a different reality that's not based on those people running the systems, that swamp's getting cleaned, whether it's Trump or someone else or the universe or just the galactic position that the solar system's in, the Earth is in, and the yugas and all that stuff. That stuff is coming to light. So we're in the middle of a transition. So I think people like Kevin Hart, even if they are semi-compromised, are still going to do beneficial and positive things. If there's compromise in a way that needs to be addressed and brought to the light, I imagine that'll eventually come to the light too. But it doesn't negate everything that they're doing. I don't think that.
Yeah, no, I mean, realize they're functionally a very low level unit, anyways. You know,
Right.
they're at the money level. Money's not that important. If anybody watching this thinks money is important, then you haven't really actually like looked at reality, because money only buys stuff. The stuff that
Right.
it buys is more important, and the time to utilize or have those things is even more important than that. So, you know, the
100%.
land and resources way beyond the money level, and there's many things beyond that. So anybody who's operating at the like, they're basically, well, they're getting money for what they're doing, which is exactly what anybody who's at like the Hollywood stardom level would be doing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're that's a low level soldier inside of this. If we want to start talking deep state, which is a
Right.
compartmentalized military that is multinational and spans the entirety of the globe. It's not just, I don't know why
Yep.
we would call it a state, really, but unless we're talking about like a physics state, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
They
but
brought up
nevertheless,
in that interview, it was interesting because I didn't I just found out about this recently. I think it maybe came out a year ago or something. They have a whole documentary on Epstein on Netflix, I think, and I think that goes into, because he was accused, he had to settle, I think, 36 counts, and he pled guilty and was in jail for a year. I mean, he talks about this on the stuff on this, but I think he was pled guilty. He was in jail for a year in like a private prison where he's allowed to leave 6 days a week and all this other shit. But
it's
he
quite
had
the prison. You
36.
can leave 6 days
Yeah.
a week.
Right, unreal, right? So they talk about this shit on
What
the
a
show.
fucking
Like
country club.
they're really pointing out like a lot of the bullshit and like putting pieces together. I may not have all the pieces. I don't think any of us do, you know, some more than others. It's exciting to me to see someone as mainstream as Joe Rogan and these people talk about it as I imagine the average person would when they're presented with that information. And then being able
Sure.
to put the comedy spin on it, man, because it's so fucked up, man. And some of that shit's really funny when you pitch it that way because it's so fucked up and it's obvious, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you take the time to look for the data stuff, there's some things happening. It seems. Yeah.
They show him
So
that
this is
he had him
this is
pull.
kind of a
Go ahead.
diversion. My point with the thing is that like this can be accomplished in like a lot of other ways. You know, that
Hmm.
besides like bringing the bank into it to do it. Like Chase Manhattan's
I
not the only
understand.
motherfuckers that know anything about
Of
investment.
course.
So nevertheless, like, but where do we even spin off to that? Like,
We're talking about
why?
having $16 billion and investing in things in the world to help to
Oh,
make the world a better
right.
place. And the
Yeah,
right or
and we
wrong of
very
sex,
clearly
child
saw
selecting.
through a conversation how we could be on two different sides where something looks like a good idea, but it also looks terrible simultaneously. And that's like why I'm not, you know, what would I do with $16 billion? Would I even bother donating any of it? I might not, except for to like my friends. My friends are like, you know, I want to fucking start a business that sells like snow cones that are shaped like dogs, and I'm like, that's never gonna fucking work. But here's 50,000. Like you can get all the shit that you need. It'll be funny. Like
Right.
I'll get one. I'll buy one.
Yeah, yeah,
Apparently, I'm
yeah,
buying
yeah,
one for $50,001. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
ridiculous. but if that's what you
Right.
want to do, man, all right, here you go. 50 G's, dog
Yeah.
snow cones. What a stupid idea, you know? Like
Right.
that's fine, you know, because if you got $16 billion, like 50 G's, who gives a fuck? You know, like, who really cares?
Right. Right. Totally. And it's an adaptive. If you have that kind of money coming in, it's a totally different mindset. You think differently. When that's in your fucking bank account, you think differently. You start to value things
And a
differently
lot of
because you actually
them
have the
don't
resources to make
fucking try
changes.
to start pushing out money like that, though. Realize the primary people who are actually at that level of wealth, they aren't actually spending on shit like that. You see, maybe in ways where they're supposedly donating to a charity, but I urge you to look a lot deeper into those things than just like they're going
Right.
to like, look, I donated $80 billion to the Red Cross. See what actually happened behind that, because we got really interesting things that happened. For instance, the most recent one. Amazon donates $10 billion to Black Lives Matter. Okay, then during the Black Lives Matter protests, and Amazon buildings get burnt down. To wit, the insurance companies have to cover Amazon for greater than $10 million that they donated to the BLM. Not a single fucking dollar actually ends up leaving Amazon's pocket. In fact, they make a profit. And then on top of that, through BLM, not a single fucking dollar goes to any type of Black Lives Matter thing whatsoever, because all of their donations go through Act Blue. You could go to their website and see where their money goes, and it basically all goes to the Democratic Party or things like this that really aren't supporting anything that has to do with Black Lives Matter whatsoever.
Yeah.
So you're not actually who'd they really donate to? They didn't really donate $10 million to Black Lives Matter. They really donated, just on the surface, $10 million to the Democratic fucking Party by way of two proxies that are being used to shield the Democratic Party from the fucking illegal investments that is being had, that it's receiving. So no, it's BLM. No, it's actually Act Blue. No, Act Blue gives donations that certainly aren't those ones over to all these other people, even though that's like 90% of our expenditures and the rest is rent, pretty much. So like we give almost all of our money to the Democratic Party, and then so now functionally Amazon has given money directly to the Democratic Party, but voila, also their buildings burnt down, and an insurance agency has to pay them out more money than they actually ever donated. So they never donated shit. They got paid
Well, it's
money to
totally,
be a
yeah,
farce.
and it's totally plausible. And it's funny that I
It's fucking facts.
just
It's not even plausible. It's facts. Like, you can go do the research right now. It's just recent. It's fucking facts. This
I just found
100,000%
out.
happened.
I just found out. I think it was Amazon's not going to have all their employees work from home until at least January 1st, and Google is having all their 200,000 employees work from home until at least July 2021.
Wow. I
That
mean,
leaves a
I
lot of
think all of
buildings
these
hoping
tech
to get burned
companies are
down.
actually, most of these places are looking to go completely non-physical. That's been the goal anyways. I mean, the internet allows for that. And there's no
Right.
actual, inside of the tech sector, there's always been kind of this idea at the worker level and at the management level of like, what the fuck are we all actually doing here still? You know, like we
Yeah.
come in here and we sit down at this desk and we like have meetings and shit. And like we could totally just do this from our computers. This could be an email thread. We don't even fucking need to be here. We all manage these products on, or, you know, all these projects. They're managed on network databases and shit that we could access remotely. There's no fucking reason for us to be here. Why do you keep making us come to this hellhole? Why do you even want to pay the rent for this hellhole? Realize the rent isn't cheap. Like, you got like a big tech company or whatever, and you got 30,000 square feet of prime
Okay.
space
That
in
being
fucking San Francisco. That's a fucking $1 million a month.
Okay, that being said, following that line of reasoning, why do you think Apple built, and I don't know the answer, I'm just thinking about this now. Why do you think Apple built, I think, I don't know, several billion-dollar facility, that big like horseshoe shaped or big cylinder shaped? Have you seen that? The big building they built, I think it's Silicon Valley,
Not
the
even
last few
familiar with the
years.
building at all. No.
Yeah, but it's like I don't know if it's a multi-billion-dollar building, but it's massive. It's supposed to be like Apple's big headquarters. I don't know, maybe it all becomes a server mainframe or something, or server farm, if everybody's
I
working from
can't
home.
possibly imagine. Well, I mean, you know, maybe because Steve Jobs is dead and they don't have anybody good enough to steal other people's ideas anymore. Because let's face it, Apple wasn't really ever coming up with anything to begin with. They've been doing nothing but making other people's decisions since the very beginning. They were good at execution and they were good at
Mm,
marketing. That's what Jobs is good at, marketing. No doubt
mm.
about it. So I don't know, because I don't know anything about that,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
can't possibly imagine why any tech company would actually want to do that at this point in time. It seems like a
Especially in
huge
the United
waste of money.
States. Yeah, with taxes
Huge
and all
waste.
everything too.
And
Yeah, oh,
Silicon
that's
Valley as
interesting.
well. Realize most tech companies are looking to actually get out of California entirely. So I
Right.
don't know what they would want to do that for. You know,
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm just curious, but
too
bummer. I thought I'd be more
expensive,
insight
no
on that.
reason. Maybe they had a buddy that was a construction foreman or whatever, a contractor, and they wanted to make sure that he could, have some money.
Yeah.
And then
Well, I know.
because they're going to install a bunch of solar panels on the thing, the government kicked them a 2.8 billion dollar grant, and private investors who are getting other types of kickbacks kicked another $1 billion. And so Apple actually made $800 million off of it and was able to give 2 billion of that to their buddy, who's actually giving them back $1 billion through another channel. And so realistically, it was just a way to steal taxpayer money. That's very possible.
Yeah,
That
fair
happens
enough.
all
That's
over
very
the place
common.
with the
Yeah, yeah.
Department of Energy. Stores worked for the Department of Energy. So, like, definitely fucking happens. I watched your tax dollars get wasted on fucking bullshit. I mean, straight up, trumped up bullshit. Like, this thing right here costs $20. Yeah, fuck it. Mark it down for $3,000. Doesn't matter. Nobody looks at these things.
Yeah.
Doesn't fucking matter. Your tax dollars
Yeah.
are completely pissed away and just fucking entirely blown and going, and I don't even fucking knows whose pocket. I don't think anybody even cares.
Well,
Like
trillions in
somebody's
private
getting it.
companies. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, all the private
I'm
companies too, like in Iraq and everything, we're
those
charging thousand
contracts are
dollars per
huge, dude.
screwdriver and ordering
Fucking
thousands of
huge
screwdrivers and
contract.
shit.
When
Yeah.
when you're getting like a $4.8 trillion contract, I mean, people ain't counting $1,000 here and $1,000 there, guys. They're not looking at
Right.
that. Like that's not even written on the expenditure sheet. They write out shit like 325.7, and that was just millions. Like that's just the way that the
Right.
fucking whole expenditure sheet looks. It doesn't even look like no one gives a fuck about that. No one's asking anything about that. The scale is completely different. And there's all kinds of like little
Right.
funds fucking ferreted away all over around there. I mean, shit, the fucking motto of most Department of Energy workers is, hey, at least we're getting paid because they know they're not doing any fucking work. Like you
Hmm.
sit around and
How
watch
long?
machines. Like
How long did you work there?
50%
What
of
did you do there?
people, several years working at help desk, and then several additional years after that working as a subcontractor, and then a personal assistant to the head of QA for the entirety of the Hanford Nuclear Waste Reservation.
What's QA?
So,
Quality
quality
assurance.
assurance. They're supposed to be the boss of the site, but no one fucking listens to them.
Huh.
So doesn't matter. That's exactly why in recent times you had such things as a guy out at the Hanford site decided to measure the level of a radioactive tank with a rock with a string tied around it, or the fact that those very same kinds of casks are leaking into the fucking soil, and we completely know about that. There's just nothing we can fucking do about it because the space and where it's leaking is actually like too hot for all the robots we even have. It fucking fries the robots we try to send in there. So I'm sure
Jesus.
it's fucking gonna be fixing that anytime soon. We're just gonna continue to study the weird, morphed fucking fish and other types of little land creatures that are all over the Hanford Reach that we don't like to tell anybody about, but they're all
Is
over the
there
place.
is Hanford? Are you talking about the all the nuclear waste they buried there?
Yes, there's a whole section of Hanford Nuclear Waste Reservation that is called tank farms, where we have just fucking tons and tons and tons and tons of nuclear waste buried inside of what are basically large concrete with rebar reinforced coffins, and they're double walled coffins. So there's concrete very thick, and then an air gap, and then concrete very thick, and then inside of that we store nuclear waste. And I mean, well. We say that we keep it there forever until it goes through its half-life. This is not actually entirely true. We pump it out of those things, and we take it through this plant that was called Purex back in the day, and then we refine it into other things, and we reuse the fuel. But we've stopped doing that since we D&D'd the Purex plant. But we D&D'd the Purex plant when we brought up another system that allowed us to pump it out of the tanks and then down a really long pipeline that ended up going to a location where it would be pumped into the building. And basically there's two sally ports on either side of this building, and the entire building is sealed at all times unless it's letting a truck in or letting a truck out, and it's never letting a truck in and letting a truck out at the same time. And it's all completely shielded space. Like if you go in there and you come back out, you have a super high dosimeter reading. You don't even want to be anywhere near the building. The whole building is super fucking hot. The entire inside of the building is completely automated and robots. It's all robots and all automation. There's only people that actually watch it. All these people get radiated. In fact, the people that work there can only like work a very small amount of time during the year, and then they have a really
Okay.
long time off. Thankfully for them, they get a yearly salary. That's your tax dollars hard at work. Some guy sitting at home. So nevertheless, these guys make like 200 G's a year, by the way. They make more than you probably. So
Yeah, and their
nevertheless,
lifespan is what, like 10 years? from the time they
No,
start
their
their job.
lifespan's totally fine because they sit inside of a sealed room inside of a Tyvek fucking taped off suit with dosimeter readings every day, and they watch a fucking computer do its job. And that's a
Jeez.
$200,000 job because you gotta have security clearance for it, and you gotta know a guy. Like if you're not friends with somebody out there and fucking, you probably ain't gonna get that job. So
Yeah.
nevertheless, this space, we pump the radioactive waste into this building. A truck delivers basically barrels and concrete, and inside of that facility, then the radioactive waste and the concrete is pumped into barrels as a mixture, which basically gives the radioactive waste something to be shielded by for transport. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put this all together with robots and then load it onto another truck in the other end. And this is the first time that it gets anywhere near a human because there's a guy that drives the truck, right? And these are
Yeah.
completely unmarked semi trucks that we then drive right down totally normal highways that everybody else could drive on. This is extremely fucking dangerous and a risk to national security, but that's the way that we do it. As we take them down to Los Alamos, New Mexico, which is a Q level security clearance site that, we're not supposed to know what's going on down there because it's Q level security clearance, but, they're making atomic weapons. That's exactly what they're doing. So they're taking that exact same waste, structuring, taking it out of the concrete cast, reprocessing it into yellow cake uranium, and making nuclear warheads. That's exactly what they're doing. We have never stopped. We still make them now. We take the nuclear waste from a site that I worked on. Well, actually, with robots that I helped design the automation for. So
Wow. Well, that's
that's what we
cool
do.
though. That part's cool. You
Yeah, the
designed
part
some of
where
that work. Yeah.
the part where we got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for doing very little work. Yes, that was great. That was
No,
exceptional.
personally, you designing the robot stuff. That's all I'm talking about. Everything else is
Right,
shit.
yeah. Which we also got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for doing very little work for because it wasn't really that hard.
That's funny. Yikes. Yeah, and yet another example
So
of where the world's
there's a
at.
lot of fucking tomfoolery going on out there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're talking about the Hanford site. Why are we talking about the Hanford site? What the fuck is that all about?
It was a logical, normal flow. I don't know wherever we were. It was good.
Nah.
I asked you more specifics about working Department of Energy, and then they went into
Oh,
that, which is
right.
good to know. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard
So
those
it
things,
was
just not at that detail.
yeah, little bit of time, long enough to realize like I don't think I can do this, guys.
Yeah, no shit.
But then, like my mom ran a software company that got like all the software that they built were subcontracts from that Department of Energy side. It's just the easiest way to make money in that area. There
Yeah,
was no reason to go anywhere else. We had more contracts than we could actually do. So, nevertheless, like
yeah.
kept
Wow.
working as a subcontractor through that. Learned more through that than actually working there at all. But you definitely get to see like the ins and outs of the day-to-day employees that are there and their level of
Yeah, yeah,
intelligence and effectiveness, things like this. So
yeah,
I wouldn't trust some of them to run a nuclear reactor. I'll tell you that much. That's just me, though.
yeah. There's a really good. There's another docudrama that came out on Netflix this last year about Chernobyl, like the
Hmm.
actual behind the scenes or the stuff that the actual journals and things that were written that weren't released then because it was all this big cover up and whatever. So you actually see the way it broke down, all the bullshit, all the government cover up, all of the stuff that was going on. Like, it's really, really well done. It's a fascinating. I think it's like 5 hour long, 5 or 6 hour long episodes. It's like a mini
That's really
series, but
long.
it's really, really well done.
Hmm. Yeah, that was a fucking catastrophe over there. So
Yeah.
we're pretty lucky that hasn't happened here, to be honest. Yeah,
Was
at
the
least in
so
Washington
the
State.
I don't know about
It,
the ones in our country. I know then that the style of reactor they decided to build, they chose the cheaper style, and it had the graphite core that surrounded the rods, and it exploded. But they were
mm,
told initially that that's impossible, that couldn't have happened, whatever. I mean, that is what happened. You break down what happened, and they cover all that up, and you see the actual truth behind what. I mean, they break it all down. It's just really, really, really well done. But they chose the cheaper model for the sake of it being cheaper,
sure.
ultimately in that dynamic. And that's not the only reason. There's a lot of other clusterfucks that just cascaded and just just really shitty decisions and other shit. But a lot of it come down from the government trying to do that as cheaply as possible. And I'm sure there could have been other esoteric agendas and things. I'm sure that obviously weren't shown in that documentary, but there's a lot more there that that people had no idea about. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff coming out. Stephen Greer just released another thing I think within the last month or so on Amazon. It's Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And it's probably the best disclosure documentary I've ever seen on UFOs with the way they film it. The ones they've done in the past, a lot of documentation, a lot of interviews with ex-military people, and a lot of, and they're good. They're really good. This one's a step beyond that. There's a lot of actual footage from different people, but also from the CE5 events and stuff they do. There's a lot of really, really good footage that I was really glad that I saw of
Hmm.
UFOs and different things they've caught on camera. And, it's just, and the way they present it too, it's about you, right? So the bypassing the national security state or just putting off the alien agenda. Well, I guess our government will figure that out. No, man, it's on you. Really, you
Yeah.
contact you getting connected to yourself. And we've talked about that on the show. We've done the Arcturian meditation. We've done those kind of things. But it really. I mean, I watched it with my grandma and I watched with my mom, and like it's nice to see finally some mainstream documentaries that are actually worth watching, because for the most part, when I've caught documentaries that they're watching or whatever, there's like an hour-long thing with two pieces of information that are just a little interesting, and they waste so much time on that. It's just a waste of life to even watch it when there's so many other
Yeah.
documentaries or things people put together on YouTube that are so packed with information. One of those, you get 10 years of watching anything you ever find on fucking A&E or Discovery or what, any of these other documentary things. So it's nice it's becoming more accessible.
Yeah. That's why I really like the rise of like university lectures being posted online. I love
Yeah.
fucking information dense shit, and dry is totally fine with me. So like
Yeah.
MIT OpenCourseWare is such a blessing. It's
Yeah.
like you can just watch some fucking dude that knows everything about this just sit here and rattle on about it for 38 hours if you want. Like I
Right.
love it.
Because then
It's
you're,
the
then you're going to
best.
find people like you that wouldn't necessarily ever take the time to go through all the prereqs to apply for MIT and spend 4 years there and whatever. You get to just cherry pick the courses that you want to learn, man. Do it fucking from home. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, there's no way I'm paying MIT for anywhere near as many credits as I've already gotten from there,
No
basically.
doubt.
So I can't even tell
Yeah.
you how many hours of. There was a point in time where I had consumed all of the data that MIT had online. Every single course that they had on OpenCourseWare, I had watched the whole of the lecture and taken notes. They have
Awesome.
more now, so I'm not no longer holding that place. But like, there's no fucking way I ever would have paid MIT for that many course credits, dude. I have no idea how much money that would have
Yeah, no
been, but I
doubt.
don't even want to know. So
Well, there's
I
another.
never.
Have you ever seen any stuff from Jordan Peterson? He's a psychologist at
Oh yeah,
a
I'm super
university in.
familiar with Jordan Peterson.
Okay, yeah, I love Jordan Peterson. All his stuff's online too. He's got years of his lectures and courses.
Hmm.
I've listened to hundreds, maybe not thousands of hours of Jordan Peterson stuff in the last few years, and I'm
Yeah.
taking notes on a lot of his shit too. Like and I think we've talked. I don't know if I was talking to you or somebody else about it, but like the nice thing about Jordan Peterson is he's always progressing his own thoughts. When he's
Hmm.
lecturing, when he's talking, I mean, there's things, but they're always running conclusions, right? And there's some things that he's, pretty adamant about based on his evidence and perspective, but like he's always progressing his own thoughts on things. I don't feel like you see
Yeah.
that very often. People present their information or their specialty, but he's always progressing his thoughts.
Yeah. I think the good like people in the psych space do this. Like Jung was always doing that too. It always
Yeah.
sounded like he was presenting a conclusion and a question at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, everything was a statement, but I somehow feel like I'm asking more questions than you gave me answers by the end of your answer, to wit, I did not ask a question.
Yeah. Willow asked, who isn't familiar with Jordan Peterson? There's a lot, actually. That's why I even asked that question. I'm surprised who hasn't. I'm talking to a lot of people who have no idea.
Uh,
There's so many
he's
people to
gotten a lot
know,
more
man.
famous recently,
Well, in the
especially since
last
Joe Rogan started talking about him.
He's been
That
on 5 Joe
that
Rogan
helped a
episodes,
lot.
but yeah, that
So
helped. But it gave him a platform to just speak. Man, I've watched all the interviews he's done. Rogan, they're great. But
yeah,
he
it
went through
also
some.
helped whatever university that was in Canada. Fucking like he had a bunch of problems with that. There was like a big scandal up there
Right.
that brought
Well, yeah, they're trying
that
to get
brought
him
him to
kicked.
a lot more fame.
Yeah, well, a lot of it. He started becoming the voice for speaking against the what was it called, enforced speech or whatever, where they was going to make a law in Canada, and it did get passed. I think, and I don't know if it got overturned or where it turned out with that, but um, that it was hate speech if you didn't refer to a person by their preferred pronoun.
Mm.
Zims or whatever. Literally, you could go to jail, be fined by not addressing them. Of course, so it was a forced speech legislation, which he gets
Ridiculous.
into the history. Yeah, exactly. Gets into the history of all that. Like it's never in history has that ever been done. There's no way this works out positively. Gets into the liberal agenda in the universities and just thrashes the universities and the way they
Yeah.
teach and the present. And so he's awesome, man. And he doesn't know. I've heard him talk about mention esoteric stuff here and there. He's not into that at all, or hasn't researched it, and he doesn't need to. People like that, I don't think necessarily need to in their life
He's
path.
got
He's
some
doing
of it because he's a big time Jungian, and so he does understand alchemy to some level and the
Oh,
like
I
the
mean, sorry,
path of
not
the
that
shaman
esoteric.
and
I mean,
things
the
like
esoteric
this.
dynamics that like run the universities and more of the things that maybe we've researched or looked into,
Oh,
things that
I
he's
hear what you're saying.
yeah, the
I
deeper
got you.
dynamics, but he doesn't need to for the most part. He's presenting the bullshit the universities are teaching based on just logic and reason, not all
Sure.
this other shit that's going on at higher levels and whatever.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think
great
even he
because it
is
totally
kind of
tears it
finding at
apart.
this point in time that like he has a big drive to teach, but really like university ain't the best platform for him to do that at.
Well, he's
So
been
he's
so they
writing
were
the books, doing the
constructing
podcast, etc.
that, but even more than that, they were constructing an online university. The same thing, like they're working to create a new system that was actually beneficial. He's for the last year, he's been out of commission, man. He had it's really they his daughter Michaela Peterson's gotten into podcasting and stuff too. She did an interview with
Hmm.
him recently, updating. I mean, his wife has had deathly ill cancer for the last like for 8 months. There's every 3 days. There's like life or death situations with her, but his own stuff going on. He was dealing with his own anxiety and different things going on. He got on they explain the detail, but he got on benzodiazepines, not knowing some of that even as much as he should know or should know as in his position. He's not a psychiatrist where they pretty much know prescriptions, whereas psychologists know the mind and the
Hmm.
psyche and working with people. And then they overlap, obviously, but that plus some other dynamics. I mean, he ended up going to several countries trying to get help to get off of that, and then turned into other things. But like, he's been on like death's door for the better part of a year. He's finally gotten like balanced back out, so he'll probably be in the sphere again. But yeah, I mean, all that everything that happened is
Yeah.
took a major toll on him.
Yep. Yeah. With where his mind was at, that is not even a remote surprise to me.
Right.
So with where it was like a year ago, he was very much so doing this coincidental opposite thing, and it was interesting because like one thing like popped at the same time. I was when he started getting very vocal about how like in so like the idea of looking at the Nazis as not being bad. Right? Like he has a whole stance on this that like I very much so like developed this same stance inside of my head through like looking at things trying to like dissolve the idea of wrongness. I was looking at things that I had always considered probably because of conditioning. This is completely wrong. These people were totally bad. And I started looking at them for like what were they actually good at? Like what are the goods inside of it? How is that actually functioning? And
Yeah.
like learning about perception through it and things like this. But this is like that specific thing. Because I believe in esoteric things, and I believe that like waves come through reality. And I saw us like on the same wave, and I very much so knew that my mind was like, yeah, this is not going good. I was
Mm.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna lose my shit over the next year. The last year of my life has been equally as bad as Jordan Peterson's, most likely. I mean, like I've
Mm.
had several friends die, dogs die, relationships break up. I fucking lost my shit like 3 times. I kind of wanted to fucking shoot myself in the head at one period. I would never do that, but I was just like, what's the fucking point of what I'm doing right now? This is ridiculous. Like, I've accomplished what I want to accomplish. Why? And like now I've kind of recarved a why and things like this, but it's like, you know, everybody's doing this all the time at their own dimensionality. Like I don't think this is where we started earlier talking about with the idea of
Mm.
like the problem is actually a thing that you create the space for. Like we could say that these things are problems, but I don't really think they're problems. I think it's just a thing that you're doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, there's on that note, I think so I watched TED Talk. It's so what do they call it? The Mario brother, Mario game theory or something this guy came up with. Is it like a 15-minute deal? TED Talks aren't super long usually, but being able to see your life like a game. And the comparison he's making was like like the 8-bit Mario back in the day and growing up where and the difference between seeing your failures or setbacks as like stopping you from pursuing anything forward as a failure versus an exciting challenge or learning a way. So basically when you're replaying that level over and over again, and when you hang out with your friends, you're asking like, how far did you get? Did you get to this level? Did you do this? Oh shit, that was really hard. How'd you get past that? And in the
Hmm.
meantime, you're dying hundreds of times or whatever because you realize, oh shit, if I jump at this point and I'm not running, I'm gonna fall into the lava pit. But you're not sitting there fucking crying, bitching to be cried in the lava.
Right.
Maybe you get really pissed off. I used to throw controllers and shit. Sometimes I get angry, right? And you
Yeah.
especially make it really far and you can't save and you fuck it up again. You just fucking throw your
Yeah.
controller and get all pissed off. But in general, you just start the level over. You adjust, make adjustments. So next time you take a running start and you jump over the lava pit. And
Hmm.
like, so there's actual, the success rate is built in being able to, I guess, cognitive reframing, right? Instead of seeing your failures as failures, they're just
Hmm.
your new algorithms so that you can succeed when you try it again next time.
Yeah. I think one interesting thing that we see inside of there is that people like, why do the people just continue to try? And I think that part of it, rather than coming up with some excuse why it can't be done, I think that actually kind of insinuates that it's like they know that the game isn't going to change. Like if they want to beat level 3,
Right.
section 2, they're going to have to
Yeah,
figure out
yeah.
how to make that fucking jump. It ain't
Yeah,
changing.
yeah.
That's the game. But then in real life, they can opt for the excuse of like, well, but in this situation, I'm getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
screwed over. The game
Totally.
could change or whatever. So then they
Yeah,
like
yeah.
buy into this, like, well, I'm not going to play the level right now. It's unfair currently. But like the level's not gonna fucking change, dude. Like your level
Yeah.
is your level. That's what the game is like when you're
Yeah.
playing it. That's the landscape. Navigate
Yeah.
it or fucking die to Goombas. That's your choice.
Okay,
You know what
did
I mean?
you I'm trying to remember what it was called now. For a while Nintendo came out with the book, like the help guide book, the official
Nintendo
one.
Power.
Yeah, there we go. Nintendo Power. Then they came out. There's another brand I think that came out with another one, the actual magazines before it just started going online to different websites and reading
Game
walkthroughs and
Pro. Like
me.
what was that thing called?
If I heard it, I'd know it. I can kind of visualize it in my head because I bought a lot of those
Yeah.
magazines for a while. But that was like so. It's like you get to a point. Like I remember Zelda was one of them. Zelda 64. Right. That
Hmm.
that's where it's like an open world and 3D, and there's a lot more engagement than just obviously your 2D games. And there's some levels that are really complicated, really hard. And it's like, all right, fuck it. I've tried this 27 times. I'm definitely going through a walkthrough guide. Or you get to certain places like, fuck it. I know I can get through this part more efficiently if I just get the walkthrough for this part. Then
Hmm.
I'll allow myself to feel rewarded for being challenged and figuring out my own and other parts. But I certainly don't have any problem like going through a walkthrough because that helped me on this part. So that's great.
Yeah. Or some people just use a walkthrough for the entire game and then go around and gloat about how they beat it so quickly.
Yeah, and see
When
that shit though. That's like I feel like there's a balance, and there's like a subjective balance, right? Like I'm
sure.
not, I have no shame in using walkthroughs, but at the same time, I want to feel like I actually enjoyed and accomplished the game to some extent. If I
Having
need a
said that,
walkthrough,
in real
cool.
life, why not use a walkthrough? There's no one
Yeah.
out there that's gonna be like, ah, you didn't play it right,
Well, I
or
guess the
something
the
like
only problem
that.
with real life is there's no infinitely subjective walkthrough for your life, but there are tools you can learn from other people and apply. But
I feel
you know,
like if you're like objective enough about the shit that you're doing, there's always a walkthrough. Like someone's already
yeah,
dealt with your shit, and they could tell
yeah,
you
yeah,
exactly how you overcome it. You likely can't do what they'll tell you to do, but
yeah,
they are
yeah.
right, and that is the thing that's going to lead to the basically the liberation from it. And they do have a walkthrough, just like, are you actually going to be able to do it? I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. He's like, I can tell you all exactly how to build a digital media agency and all of the important things because, like, despite the fact that that's what I do, you're not going to compete with me because 99% of you are never going to do any of this.
Right.
I can
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about it all day. You'll never do it.
yeah,
So even if you wanted to, you probably still won't. So
yeah.
yeah,
Isn't that interesting, especially in the age of information where that, like I said, MIT courses, I mean, there's lots of other university courses, and like that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the amount of information available for us to have walkthroughs to whatever we want to do are there. Then it's like Kevin was saying earlier with his friend, you find like, oh, that's too hard. You just quit.
yeah,
But at least now you know, like you were shown a pathway, and if you decide you want to take it, oh, that's fine. But at least you know, up until this point in life, you probably weren't even ever shown that pathway, unless you're a
yeah.
millionaire or billionaire, you're connected to the right people. It's like now you just need to be connected to the internet and have intuitive keyword searches and find whatever the fuck you want, man.
Sure. Yeah, it's crazy how much data can be found out there. Having said that, I do come across a lot of fucking books that I can't find for free, and it's pretty annoying because some of them are expensive.
Mm,
And like
yeah, that's true.
I don't think okay. So if a book was written in fucking like 1590,
Yeah,
whoever's charging me money for it right now has fucking nothing to do with that guy.
right.
There's no way. Like I feel like that thing should be free now. It should be a matter of public record. It's fucking
Have
500 years
have
old.
you
Like,
used
come
have you
on.
used archive.org?
I have sometimes. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there's just some books that just aren't out. Like, you just can't
yeah,
find a
yeah.
fucking PDF of them, no matter how
But
much you
there,
look.
I know there are for sure, but if people don't know archive.org. There are thousands, tens of thousands of books like off the back shelves of Harvard, like Zach's saying, like 100-year-old, several 100-year-old books that have been scanned PDF. They're free to download,
Yeah.
and I mean I printed off hundreds of books probably from archive.org,
Yeah.
and
Project
and actually
Gutenberg
have
is
another
exceedingly
one.
good as well.
Cool.
So, and well, like a year or 2 years ago or something, who was it? It was a guy that like he fucking runs some big company. I don't remember what it was. It might have been like Netflix or something like that. I don't
Hmm.
actually fucking remember what it was. Don't quote me on the company they ran. Some dude that has a lot of money because of the company that he runs. He had he had put a shitload of money into this project and bought all of these books, and he was actually like supposed to be bringing up the largest online archive of esoteric information in
Uh-huh.
existence. But I have not heard anything about it since then.
Speaking of which, the largest online esoteric archive that I know of is probably on Seven's site, secretenergy.com. They have a tremendous amount of information on there that's been categorized and sifted through, and
Are these
Seven's
like
gone through a lot of them.
old books? Because that's what we're
Yeah,
talking about when we're saying
yeah, yeah,
archive.
yeah, yeah. PDFs and documents and books. I think a lot of that's on there as well. They have a really huge resource center on there.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know. If you know somewhere that has triumphal forms, structural patterns in Elizabethan poetry, you let me know. Because $41 for a paperback for a book written in 1600, you ain't getting it, Amazon. You ain't getting it. I'll
Yeah,
not doing it. No fucking way. I'll literally just go get all the plays and figure out what the book says by decoding all of them before I fucking pay that. It's ridiculous. 42 fucking dollars. What the hell? There's like, oh my, it's just so ridiculous to me. Just
yeah,
purely based off the idea that like there's no way that like the dude who wrote this book or anyone in his family is getting even a dime of this. Like no
right.
one related to him at all. Just some dude who owns
Yeah,
basically a
that would
copyright.
be a thing, wouldn't it? If like a book was 100 years old or something, and once you hit a certain mark, it has to be, especially nowadays, has to be scanned and uploaded on the internet for free. Or once the person dies, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
I
Whatever. There should be
wish.
something like that.
Fucking yeah. No such
Zach,
luck.
Kevin said he had to buy a book for Metal Gear Solid one night while tripping my fucking nuts off.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid's fucking pretty difficult game, really.
Never got into that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, all the Metal Gears. They got a lot of things that you gotta do in there. Oftentimes, a lot of like basically
Was that
puzzles.
was that the same time as StarCraft 2? That same era, late 90s ish, early 2000s, Metal
There
Gear
was
Solid and all
probably a
that.
Metal Gear Solid that came out around the time StarCraft 2 did. Is there
Yeah,
a StarCraft 2?
yeah. StarCraft 2 is the one I played.
Oh yeah,
I
okay,
never got
yeah,
into StarCraft 1. Actually, I think it just came up recently on something, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Yeah, this because I thought it was StarCraft 2, and it was not.
yeah,
Way more basic.
yeah. Probably around that same time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Metal Gear's been having games come out since back on Nintendo. So, and they
Oh,
have
yeah,
games
yeah.
on, the newer PlayStation systems and shit.
Did you have
So,
Did you have the original Nintendo and Super Nintendo and or Super Nintendo?
I had the original Nintendo the day that it came out, the Gold Zelda edition.
Awesome. Was the actual
And I did
Nintendo
not
Gold
get to
or just
play it
that?
for 3 days because my motherfucking dad did not leave the machine for 3 days.
Dude, that's funny. My when I think we got the Super Nintendo, I caught my dad one night. He'd open it was for our Christmas present, right? But he's out in the living room playing it, Super Tecmo football or whatever that fuck was, whatever the game was on there.
He just couldn't wait. He's like, I'm gonna buy my
Yeah,
kids a video game. Why didn't he buy himself a video game system? He should just
that
buy himself
was
one.
that was, that was the family one. It was just our
No, not
Christmas
the
present.
family one. Mine. You
Well,
guys
Dad
share
wanted to
the
play.
family
Dad wanted to
one,
play.
and I play the one on my TV in my room where the kids leave me alone. I drink beer.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
game I got the most angry at, I think before I was able to kind of control my whatever you want to call it, game rage or poor sportsmanship or just whatever my own attitude with games. I still get upset, but like not like chucking controllers and breaking controllers. That was definitely. I think that was either Super. No, I think it might have been the Donkey Kong 64. That might have been
Mm,
what it was. Those levels were really frustrating.
mm.
Apparently, from that time in life, I think I broke a controller at least once, and then I got trouble because I was not allowed to behave that way over a game, and I think I changed shortly after that.
Online gaming set a whole new level of frustration in gaming for me.
Yeah, why is
So
that? Oh, just because of
it's
other people, live interaction with people, as opposed to
well,
an AI.
I hate fucking losing. Hate it. Hate it.
Yeah.
And like I especially don't like it in video games. Oftentimes video games have like some bullshit in them, like whether it be bugs or it be something that's
Oh yeah.
exploitative or very
Yeah,
flavor of
yeah.
the month or overpowered and needs
Okay.
balanced or
What
there's
are some
always
of
some shit like
what are
that.
some of Zach's most frustrated, angry reactions to video games throughout your life? Like, what'd you do?
I mean, I've like fucking punched my keyboard so hard that like many buttons came flying out of it on numerous
You had to
occasions.
pop them back on. Just click them back on.
Yeah, or grab another one. There's no one in the third box. I have a very slow internet connection at my house. Well, the upload's trash. So I have my video coming through my phone and my audio coming through the host computer, which is seen in the top left corner. And it's really the best that I can do. If I'm the only one here, it works really good because no one can ever tell. But when we have
Mm.
other people, it does not work out so well. So that is
It's kind of cool.
Zach's
I like.
audio box.
Yeah, and that's the explain what she said. The third box X. Yeah, it's cool because then I guess with expanded understanding, the little logos there, and it's bouncing every time you talk. So adds
Yeah.
subconscious subliminal to the audience.
Yeah. Unreal Tournament, that's a good one to get super angry at. That'll work. I mean, like
What's the Unreal
any
Tournament?
gun. Unreal Tournament is a first-person shooter game that is pretty fast-paced. It does have like a capture the flag mode. Primarily, it was played as deathmatch though, where it's just like everybody kills everybody, or team
Mm-hmm.
deathmatch where there's two teams that kill each other. And there's certain guns in there that are like it, it feels fucking real cheesy to die from oftentimes. Yeah,
Just
and there's fucking falling off of the side of a lot of the maps are like basically like this suspended island. You know what I mean? So you can
mm,
fall off the side of the map or fall off parts of the middle of the map, and there's a lot of
yeah,
like
yeah.
crazy movement, and you're like jumping and shooting and turning real fast all over the place. And sometimes like shit's going good, and then you fucking jump off the side of the map, or like you just have stupid things that happen off the side of the map multiple times, or there's so many things that can really happen inside of that. Yeah, first person shooters can get you really fucking frustrated with yourself. Is really the
Mm,
thing. You know, you're just not performing to the level that you would like to be performing to. And oftentimes you will have some excuse that is the game or the conditions or the thing that the other person is doing or something like that, that is basically the space within which you justify that being outside yourself, when really what you're mad about is that you're not performing to the level that you want to be.
yeah, yeah.
So, and that, like, pro tip, if you want to ever go pro in FPSs or any kind of video game, recognize that's the whole reason you ever get mad at a video game. It's actually just good for your entire life. Source for
Mm,
this is me being on many number one teams and playing video games professionally at a certain point in time in a tournament setup, both live and online. So if
awesome.
you want to be professional at anything, learn that, like, if you're fucking mad at it and you think it's bullshit, that's because you're not good enough yet. That's the
Yeah.
whole reason. Practice more. Try
Think,
harder.
think, think of Mario Bros. You just need to go back and learn how to beat that better. It's you. You got to fix your problem.
Yeah.
Except for
Yep.
sometimes, I guess, where there's the frustrating where they get like, where people do hacks or codes and they get these Unreal guns or God modes or bullshit stuff that just kind of fucks everybody else over. I guess in the tournaments they
Hack.
probably weed that shit out.
That doesn't really happen in FPS tournaments too much,
Yeah.
especially because like either through verified clients or requiring every competitor to send in a recording, or it's actually being done at like a LAN live, or someone
Mm,
is like a third party referee that's observing the match the whole time, or something
gotcha.
like that. Like,
Do people
it,
get with the referees? Like, what do people get called out on in those tournaments
It's not really
or
about them
disqualified
like
for?
it's not really about like an active referee. It's more
Uh-huh.
like somebody there watching the game to ensure that there's no foul play like hacks going
Right,
on.
right. So, like, did people try that shit in live tournaments and get booted?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, like, there's so many different things. Like, anytime if you're playing a game and it has walls, being able to see through those walls would be beneficial to you. And
Yeah.
if you're running a hack that allows you to basically wireframe all of the walls so that you can see through them, but you don't ever play like you can see through the walls,
Yeah, yeah.
then potentially you would be able to get away with it with advanced information about the other team. And realistically, at like top level in FPS games, so much of it hinges on information about what the other team is doing, especially in games that are
Mm.
like slower paced. Well, one of the biggest FPSs ever was Counter Strike, and it was played in a search and destroy mode, where basically one team tries to plant a bomb, the other team tries to stop them from planting a bomb and defuses the bomb. This fucking game was all about information. I mean, like, aim was really important, but at the top end, everybody fucking hit headshots constantly. Like, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, these people spend a lot of time practicing. Motherfuckers who were pro in Counter Strike early days, they played that shit for 14 hours a day, every day. There was a lot of practice going in.
Yeah, yeah.
And nevertheless, like, so what it really came down to, what separated shit was strategy and thus information about what strategy is being used against you. So like
Hence,
it's
having
all
your
about
teams put together make a
information.
little difference.
Yeah, and then even things on top of that, like just knowing if someone shot you from here and he had two dudes with him, then they're definitely going this way, and those gunshots you hear over there is a fake.
Mm.
So send everybody this way because I'm 100% positive that the guy that was in the doors before I got shot must be the guy with the bomb because they sent 3 dudes this way. There's only 5 dudes. Their fake went over to this other site and they're going to be rotating through middle. So we wait for them at middle doors, not pushing out, but we wait for them to try and jump up basically this place where you can jump up to cut across the middle of the map to get over there. We shoot them in their fucking back while they sit there, and then we collapse across cat or catwalk, and we then are holding that side of the site, and at the same time we'll push out underneath bridge and we'll come down from long B and we'll push them from all 3 angles while also clearing their 2 rotators. So let them plant the bomb, but everybody get in position for that so that we can retake. Like, that's how professional
Awesome.
FPS plays. You ain't just like a bunch of guys like, oh, there's a fucking bomb's going to that site. I'm gonna go try and kill him. Like, don't do that. You're fucking bad. That's not how you do that. It's like it's a team game.
Don't
You
do
work
that.
as
You're
a team
bad.
or you fucking lose. Like nobody wants you to be a hero. Nobody on the team cares about you being a hero. A spectator or you yourself might want you to be a hero. Everybody on the team wants to win.
Yeah.
That's it,
Awesome.
especially at like any type of professional level. And honestly, that ends up being a big ethics thing because, you
Mm.
know, when everybody in the space wants to win, well, they're willing to do an awful lot to get that done. So, you know,
Yeah.
and in certain spaces, especially inside of video gaming, you know, like you have a weird dynamic. Like you can't like exploit in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like exploit
Mm.
the way the game works or something. Really, I mean, like I could
Yeah. Yeah.
draw similarities to this, but realize also that was like a big standout thing inside of the space. This would be the idea of like the James Harden step back 3. Is that traveling? Like I'm pretty sure that's fucking traveling. Well, technically by the rules, it's not because one of the steps that he takes is when the ball is still dribbling off the ground and coming back up to his hand. He doesn't actually have control of it yet, so it's not him taking a step. It's a step taken in free space when he was not in control of the ball. So now he can take 2 steps and then shoot. So he gets like
Yep.
18 fucking feet of a drop back on you every single time. Well, it feels like he's exploiting the game, you know, in a certain way, and kind of he is. Inside of like video gaming, though, oftentimes there's some kind of bug or some kind of shit that just the developer hasn't fixed. Everybody that fucking plays it knows that this is bullshit. They know it's a bug, but you also know your opponents are gonna fucking use that shit, like 100%. You know,
Yeah.
in Counter Strike, another perfect example. There were walls that like, well, the developers never really thought that people would be like jumping on top of each other's head in order to then be able to jump and just barely see over a wall to get information about people or maybe do like a quick snipe or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of the walls are built to be like too high for a person that's jumping to see over. You're not supposed to be able to
Mm.
get information from there. But then you get these crazy motherfuckers that'll come over there and like one guy goes over there and crouches, another guy jumps on top of him and crouches at the same time that a guy like jumps on him, which causes this bug which gets him to be on top of 2 guys crouching, and now he's seeing over some fucking wall that he's not even supposed to be able to see over, and he just told them where your entire fucking team went, and you have to know he's going to do that and not deploy through that space. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
just gave away everything about your team. And it's not about going like, well, this is bullshit. They shouldn't be doing that. You need to realize they're fucking doing that. And if you want to
Right.
win, don't let them get anything out of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, same thing
Awesome.
everywhere else. You know,
That's cool.
if
The
you want
team
to win,
dynamic
figure
too.
out what it takes to win. Don't talk about why you're losing.
Yeah. Well, then, like I said, that team, when everybody wants to win, you're willing to play roles, right? It's not about being hero. You want to win, so it doesn't matter what your role is. You find out whatever your role is to fit in the team and do the best you fucking can at that role, because that's how the team wins.
That's certainly the ideal team player, for
Yeah,
sure.
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
you get
I
them
mean, that's
some of the times.
what's the problem? Is it ego? Just people's egos get in the way. They don't want to play a role, or what?
Yeah, the one that that's one of them. The one that I've seen that's probably less seen is that they know they're really fucking good at this game. And so
Mm,
they basically have like an overconfidence thing going on. And their
mm,
overconfidence actually pays off a lot. But sometimes it doesn't. And we lose that time every time.
mm.
So it's like despite the fact that we're a whole team here and everybody on the team is trying to work cohesively, because you think you're really fucking good at this game, you charge out of the site to try and flank them early, like all the time. If they're aware that you're doing that, if they just start like playing slow and then rotating to your site when you flank out, you'll never even fucking see them. Like they'll take the site, you'll never fucking even see them. You know, you're in the wrong
Yeah.
place at the wrong time because you're going like, okay, nobody's coming here. All right, I'm gonna rotate to the other side. I'm fucking gonna get the good flank and I'm
So
gonna take their whole team out.
when
You
you
know,
got somebody on the team who's done that enough times, whatever that is,
kick
two,
them.
three, four. Yeah. So what do you do? Make a team decision, or how do they get booted? How's that work?
Have a leader. Make him do his job.
So that's the leader's call. There's a team leader. It makes those kind of
If you're
calls.
playing
It sees where the
professionally,
unit's not
that's the team
cohesive.
manager or
Mm,
the team coach. And like modern day esports, these organizations that are playing at professional level always have a manager that doesn't play. It's a
mm.
non-player manager. So this
Yeah,
is
coach.
it would really primarily be like their call.
Yeah,
But
makes sense.
really,
Kevin.
in all fairness, inside of esports, it's a very immature space. And a lot of times, what really actually happens is like bad blood starts coming. There's a lot of fucking drama that ensues. People get
Yeah,
heated at each other. Nowadays, they're streaming and they're streaming on their own. So they're on their stream and they're like kind of sort of underhandedly talking shit about their own team
yeah.
and shit like this, just talking about current events and shit boils up. And oh my God, big drama, great for the fans. The fucking organization loves it because they need every single thing that they can get to try and actually make any money out of the space. Because let's
Mm,
face it, anything in video gaming, if you're not a publisher, you probably aren't making any money. You
mm.
probably aren't. So there's a common misconception that like you know, maybe like these organizations are making big money or video game developers are making big money. If you didn't publish your game, you probably do not even have control of your funds. So
Kevin said I'd be the one who gets killed all the time. Yeah, that's me. I played enough for shooters to kind of have fun with it, but I never got into enough. I got
yeah,
into earlier games.
if you want to actually play like professional level first person shooters, you better be ready to quit your life. That has to become your life. Like for some period of time, that has to become your
And
life.
you know when you've made it when you have a stack from floor to ceiling of soda cans just out of sight of your mom, right next to your desk.
That's a good indicator that you're at least on the path. I believe that the path to internet stardom in that regard is paved with empty Mountain Dew cans. There's a
Yeah.
good chance. Might be Red Bull nowadays. I don't know. You know.
Was it? We may have this conversation when we talked about it in some episode before, but did you ever get into Surge when that came out?
I mean, I tried
Remember
it and
that?
stuff, but I was a Mountain Dew guy.
Yeah.
I
You were
had a
hooked on that one
convenience
early.
store just right down the block. They had that fucking Mountain Dew on tap.
Yeah.
That I didn't even have to pay for 44-ounce sodas there most of the time. Like I was really good friends with the people who ran the thing, even
Yeah.
because I was in there all the fucking time. So
Yeah.
it was good times. My mom bought me way more soda than a parent should ever buy their child. Just like, no,
Isn't it
seriously, it was
amazing?
bad, dude. My mom would go to the grocery store like once a week and she would buy 4 fucking cases of Mountain Dew, dude. And I would run out before she would go to the store again and need to be going down to the convenience store to get 44 ounces and shit. It was fucking bad. I cannot
Dude,
believe how much Mountain Dew I drank.
with what we know of how bad sugar is for the body and all that other shit, it is amazing that so many people, yourself included, but so many other people too, function so highly in that cognitive space or hand-eye coordinate, all that stuff
Yeah.
with the games and shit, just loading on sugar. It's insane.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be dead right now.
Yeah, so are a lot of people.
I'm supposed to be
Jesus.
like some like a Sour Patch Kid mummy, basically.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm just made out of sugar. I'm flesh-colored sugar.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's funny
It
shit.
really wouldn't be surprising. I mean, like I had a fucking problem with sugar, dude. Like it was bad.
Oh yeah, the thing is, it's not like you're not the exception though.
Bro, I had a
You're like, oh,
five
okay.
pound bag of Sour Patch Kids in one night once. A 5-pound bag.
How'd you shit that night? You remember?
I don't think I ever shit again. I still
Yeah.
haven't shit. Actually, that's why I
Yeah.
remember still. No,
Uh,
no,
that's
I
funny.
don't remember. I just remember that like I was I
Yeah.
was playing some game and I had this bag of Sour Patch Kids over here and I was just like reaching over and eating them like in
Uh-huh.
between things that I did. Like I'd start something
Yep.
up and then eat one, and then
Yep.
start something up and then eat one. And I remember like coming back from the bathroom at one point in time and I like saw my nightstand next to me and I was like, that fucking bag's almost empty. like, what the fuck did you do to yourself? Like, that
Yeah,
was a
no shit.
5 pound bag weighed at the store bulk. That was supposed to last forever. It lasted literally several hours. Like, what the fuck is wrong with
Amazing.
you? Dude, I had okay, so like the drawer that everybody keeps like their silverware in. I was
Uh-huh.
so a little backstory. I'm an only child, which means yes, I am horribly spoiled. Only child to a single mother, very spoiled, very
Mm.
very spoiled. So, and I'm aware of it, and I get it, privilege, all that stuff. I'm on board. You're right.
It's that white
So
privilege, bro.
nevertheless, I had hey man, I ate Mexican candy because I tried to diversify,
Oh, okay.
but
And I have a black friend. It's all good.
color TV, Fruit Loops, you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
nevertheless, like the normal drawer that everybody like keeps their fucking silverware in, I literally had one of those for like my entire childhood from fucking I don't even know 8 years old to 18 years old, packed to the brim with candy all the time. There was never a point in time that wasn't packed with candy. I even had to say what I want. Like my mom would just buy a variety of candy at the store to go with the 4 cases of Mountain Dew and the popsicles and like just ridiculousness, dude. Because she was just
Yeah.
like she just wanted me to be happy or whatever. And like it was weird because
Yeah.
like my mom had this huge drive to be like the best parent ever. But she
Mm.
also wanted to make me like the happiest kid ever, and those just do
Yeah,
not
yeah.
mix. Like
No
that's
shit.
those don't
Yeah,
mix.
yeah.
Every time she would make me the happiest kid. Looking back on it now, that was kind of bad parenting.
Well, it's funny too, there's the culture, right? Because I mean nowadays that shit like it's way less or it's more saturated in the culture, like how unhealthy certain things are and those dynamics. Back then, I mean,
Sure.
that was all driven by marketing and media. I mean, people knew it was bad, but not really. Not
I
like
mean, my mom
today.
told me I was gonna die because I ate too much sugar every day. Like she would
Yeah.
literally every day be like, you're gonna be a fucking diabetic, right?
As
And
she's
I was
supplying it
like,
to you, but putting the guilt on you
yeah, whatever,
as
probably
a child.
not. I would tell her, no, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I'd already be diabetic, and I'm good, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bleed
Will
Mountain
said.
Dew now. It's all good.
Will said you had a good son.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't. I mean, we could leverage
Yeah.
into the story in an entire different way. My mom was dating alcoholic bank robbers who were trying to murder her at one point in time. Like lots of lying and deceit. My dad wasn't
Mm.
around. My mom couldn't trust anyone. My mom had rampant anxiety, was completely worried about me. If I ever got in trouble for anything, that meant I needed to sit down and have my mom speech me about every possible angle you could ever
Oh yeah.
fucking
Shit.
perceive that from for like the next 5 hours. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. Yeah.
talking 5 hours. And if you
Yep.
aren't paying attention the whole time, it's a fucking problem. You know,
Yep.
my friends were just like it was very difficult to get more than a like there was a couple of my friends that were fine with coming over to my house. The rest of them were just like literally terrified of my mom. They were like 100% positive my mom would shoot them in the face. That's what they always said. And they probably weren't wrong. I mean, my mom packed a pistol, 45 on her hip and, probably would have shot him in the face if they were acting up
You're
too
like,
much.
all right, bro, I'll catch you on the server. I'm not coming over.
Yeah. Yeah, well
Yeah.
that was kind of the weird thing like cuz I had one friend that kind of like played online video games with me, but I had like this completely different group of people that I played video games with, and I had this group of people that were like, well, like, your standard cool kids in high school. They were like partying, hanging out, like doing drugs, sitting around at their friend's house all the time. And when I started getting into video games, I was like, this is a lot funner than what you guys are doing, except for like maybe from like 10 to 1 on a Saturday or something like that. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like there's the specific choice times where hanging out with you guys is a fucking amazing rager. And then there's also most of the time it's a lot funner to be at home playing video games. But all of them thought like, I mean, like my friends weren't like supportive of the fact that I played video games all the time. They thought I was a fucking nerd.
Oh,
They're like,
sure,
"What are
yeah,
you
yeah,
doing? You're such a fucking computer nerd, dude. You ever gonna leave your fucking house?" You know what I mean? Like I used to hear
yeah,
this all the time. I have people calling
yeah.
me up. Do you want to do something? I'm like, "Nah, man. I got this thing going on right now. I'm already busy." And they're like, "What are you playing fucking video games again?" And I'm like,
Like,
"Yeah, dude. I'm
yeah,
playing fucking video games all the time."
yeah,
So pretty
yeah.
easy to hit that nail on the head. It takes up 90% of my life.
Oh, yeah.
So
I guess that's funny. Yeah, the culture of that too, where the bullying of the nerds and the fucking
yeah.
kids as people that can relate. Totally different now.
I was a fucking nerd for using the internet. You know what I mean? Like now I say
Yeah.
to people, I'm like, like I had digital subscriber line before anybody else in my town. You know what I mean? And they're like, "Oh,
Mm.
that's fucking sick. You were the first person to have broadband." And back then they were like, you're a fucking nerd." You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Isn't
it
that
was
funny?
weird. So whatever.
Mm.
My friends were like skateboarders and athletes and drug addicts. You know what I mean? So like
Mm.
playing video games wasn't really actually very high on their list. Tony Hawk saved the day for most of the shit. You know, it's like the primary guy that was calling me a nerd for playing video games. He ended up becoming probably the best ever at Tony Hawk. Like ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Let's see, that was what, PS1 and then PS2. Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I think. What was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that shit was sick, man. I was into that for a while, not like competitively, but that game was fucking awesome.
My buddy Matt
played
was
the shit out of that game.
Retarded at that game. It was ridiculous.
Dude,
like I'm very good at video games, and not even a chance of potentially competing with him.
The open world levels, man. Yeah, with the open world levels that you could do, the combinations and the tricks, I mean, really was endless. And you could do some sick shit where people are just sitting around, your friends sitting around watching you, or different people doing shit on that for, the whole level, the whole time. It's just insane. And then
how there was like 3-minute runs? This motherfucker would do 10-minute runs.
Yeah,
because for the last 7 minutes of it, he would be doing a combo with manuals and all this shit, and by the end of it, it's like, 47,000 point trick times 198 or some shit. It's like, what the fuck is going on, dude?
Yeah.
Like, how'd you get 8 billion points in one run? Oh, you played for 11 minutes. That actually changes everything. Now it makes sense.
Did did he play that game professionally? Did that become a big competitive thing?
That I don't know if anybody ever played that professionally. He just played
I don't
it
think
a lot.
So either. Yeah.
He was a skateboarder, and like, we all wished we could have skated like fucking you could skate in Tony Hawk Pro Skater, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt.
We chilled out at his house a lot. It was kind of like the local like smoke spot, and so we hung out over there like an awful lot. So his video game system was all around, and just kept playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And after years and years and years of that, he was basically a god. So
Kevin said my dude was Bucky. Yeah, Bucky, one of the characters on there.
Bucky Lassick.
That's right, man. What a great fucking game. And then I think on 64 something 1080, snowboarding 1080 was similar, but it was a snowboarding. That was cool. But that one
several controllers with that one, not getting mad at it, but just doing 1080.
Yeah, yeah. The joysticks, I wear out the the shit out of joysticks, man. Especially with, I don't know if it was that game.
Like, bam!
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Where you just rubbing it with your other palm and getting it to go.
Yeah, you ever play any of the WCW or WWF games on Nintendo 64? Because that was a good way to break one of those little analog sticks too. They had all like when you like locked up with a guy, what determined who won the lockup was how much you rotated this thing.
That's right.
I've literally because we used to have my buddy Johnny's house, dude. We used to have like legit Royal Rumbles. We had like the multi-tap, so you could get like 8 people going at the same time and play like a legit Royal Rumble in the game, which sometimes turned into a real life fight, oftentimes actually, but nevertheless. Like, we would be playing that shit, and, like, I've literally, like, worn huge holes through the palm of my hand because it was,
yeah.
Fuck you! No way! Right. How did you win that shit? There's no way! How do you always win them? What the fuck?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I used to get so heated about that game. You remember Powerbomb in WWF? You remember what that is? That special?
Vaguely.
I got legit power bombed on the fucking ground over that game by a dude. Like, I was down on the ground hitting it like this. He got pissed off, threw his controller down, stood up. Basically, my head was in between his legs as soon as he stood up, and he legit picked me up and kadoosh on the ground.
Dude, do you remember? I think probably the time I got the most frustrated was I think it was my sister or somebody's sister. Little sister, right? So like Mortal Kombat, I think was one of them. So you're learning all the finishing moves, all the combos, and you're you playing against your friends. Like, it's fucking really tough. You guys have learned to play this game really, really well. She gets in there and just like fucking starts smashing buttons, kicks your fucking ass.
Button smasher.
What the fuck?
God.
And she's just like, and then she's like, yeah, I won. No, fuck you.
Yeah, like, you want to try that in real life, bitch?
Dude,
can't smash buttons in real life, bitch.
That's the same thing. It's like, how the fuck are you doing that? What the fuck? You spent all this time figuring this shit out, man.
Yeah, that's fucking gnarly. I gotta smoke a cigarette, so we're doing a little transition here.
All right. Casual show. Hitting the 2-hour mark.
Video games, man. There was numerous occasions where Zach got that ass beat over video games. It's pretty interesting actually, because I lived like a pretty rough childhood in a lot of ways, and there was a lot of opportunities for me to get in fights, and I got in a lot of fights, but primarily me losing fights came because the fight started over video games. Like that happened on numerous occasions. I got my ass straight beat in an arcade once by a dude that had to have been 10 years older than me or something. When I was like 13, 14, Killer Instinct came out. Fucking ultra
Yeah, yeah,
comboed
yeah.
this dude with like 20 people standing around. This dude ultra comboed me in real life. Like, oh my God. He beat the fucking piss
This
out
is
of
at an
me.
arcade game,
Yeah, in the
like at an
middle of an
arcade.
arcade. Like on the day of release, there's all these people there all hyped and shit. The only reason this dude stopped beating my ass because the dude who ran the arcade got him off me and I'm calling the cops and shit. Like he beat the fuck out of
Jesus,
me.
wow, dude, that's hardcore. You know
I
what's
mean, I
weird?
deserved it. I was talking that shit. I was talking that shit. And I could back it up in the game.
I was gonna
But,
say, yeah, but in real life, yeah, that's
yeah.
funny, man. How that works. That reminds me. So I had a weird arcade story. So this isn't diverges from the funny ones, I guess, a little bit. But I played. So my mom was in a bowling league for a couple years growing up, and so we were babysat by getting money to go to the arcade. It was in the bowling alley, and that was fucking cool. And then I remember meeting some people, and I was like, God, 11-ish. And so these kids were maybe, I don't know, they're a little more into their teenage years, but I mean teenagers. And they had me hooked on some story, like just chatting with them, the arcade shit, and then they took it. Then we ended up going out back to smoke or whatever, and it must have been like 11 or 12. And they smoked. I don't know if I smoked at that age, and the smoking was recent for me. But they had this story going about how they were vampires, but they were white vampires, and I mean, I remember being thoroughly convinced as a kid. I mean, in the same way that get that tingling intrigue when you look into certain subjects or certain things you don't quite understand, but there's something fucking real here. And plus, I was a kid, and I think they were just fucking with me, right? Because I'm obviously gullible and I'm buying the story, and they kept carrying on with it. But I remember that being a very interesting night. I met the white vampires that lived at the arcade.
When you experienced that, did you go like, I'm gonna remember this for the rest of my life?
I don't know.
Because
I
you
do
did.
now. I
You
do
did
now.
remember
Yeah,
it for the rest of your life.
I do.
You're
I
still
think about
remembering
that
it.
from time to time. It's really
If you
interesting, that
didn't forget
dynamic.
yet, you're probably never going to.
The arcade or the I guess it wouldn't be arcade. It was Arcade Plus. God, what are the places that do it around here? It was called. I think one of the most famous ones across the country is like the Rocky and Bullwinkle, where they do all sorts of arcades and you get tickets and that whole shit. You know what I'm talking
Okay,
about?
it's like kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese. Is that what you're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, okay,
talking
duh,
about?
yeah, yeah. That's a little more common, yeah. And there's another name. It's they have different Fantasia. That's what it was around here.
Yeah.
Um, Fantasia. So you get tickets and shit, but then because I was so tall, I could go up like when nobody's watching, right? My sister or somebody's with me, and then we get the skeet balls or whatever, and I just reach my arm up there and just drop them in the hundreds or whatever the whole time and get a
Nice.
bunch of tickets.
Oh
Oh, it was
God,
fun.
scamming the arcade. Yeah, we
Yeah.
when I was really young, the first arcade scam I was ever introduced to was actually by one of my friends named Steven's father, who was ex-military but now fixed arcade games for a living. And he showed us how you could drill a hole through a quarter and put some fishing line on it, and then you could get unlimited video game plays. And he taught us this because Steven wouldn't quit asking him for money to go play video games at the Circle K up the street. He was like, "Fuck that! Here, look, I'll show you how y'all kids how to get infinite video games."
How did
Oh,
that
it fucking
work?
worked 100%, dude.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, Steven got busted doing it like the second time that he did it and gotten
Oh,
fucking,
bummer.
like wasn't allowed to come to the Circle K and play video games anymore. But
Yeah.
like I didn't get caught doing it. I fucking did it for a long ass time. It's
Wow.
great.
I wonder if that works nowadays.
It would on older
Imagine not.
machines.
Yeah, the old ones.
I don't know about
Yeah, the
newer
old ones.
machines.
I remember a
This
neighbor in
was
our neighborhood.
1990, probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Maybe
So
89.
okay, so this is let's see, a neighbor, some of your neighborhood. I had to be, so it was like 95-ish. I don't know, 86, yeah, 9, 10 years old. He had several actual arcade machines in his house. I think I don't know, he did something with computers and programming and shit. But one of them was the original Asteroids.
Mm.
Is that what it was? Asteroid? Is that Asteroids, right? You have your little ship in the middle and you spin around and shoot out break up
Yep,
the
that's
rocks and
Asteroids.
shit. And then I thought the coolest thing, though, especially at that age, right, was that he had it rigged or whatever, that you just hit the button or the coin slot or something, and it would just go as if you
Yeah.
put money in it. It was infinite plays. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that Steven kid, they had a centipede game. The front of it was opened up, and you could just click this little button inside of it, and it would give you as many
Yeah,
credits as you wanted. That's fucking cool.
that is cool.
Yep, fucking video games. Video games have been a huge staple in my life, and I got told by a million people that I was wasting my life, but I learned more about teamwork from video games and probably actually about progression than really anywhere else in my life. And like I played sports, I fucking did personal sports like the skateboarding, the snowboarding, etc. And I would say the only one that actually even comes close for me was climbing. But
Mm.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I learned a lot through fucking video games, man. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
no
And I was
shit.
playing exactly the video games that they were telling you shouldn't be playing. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, it's like
So
well, it's like a lot of entheogens, I guess, and stuff too, or to make a loose analogy or analogy, yeah. Um, where it's not so much the effect of the psychedelic or the psychoactive, it's your reaction to it. So if
absolutely.
you're putting inside of a game or whatever, it's your cognitive reaction, and I mean more than that. I mean you're obviously building your neurology, especially at younger ages, and but more than just hand-eye coordination, like talking about all the tactics and the thought processes, even some of the lesser games, if you will, just the dynamic talked about earlier, there's the Mario Brother theory. When you have that in games, I mean, it probably can build a drive in people to know that you fail a lot, you die a lot, or you mess up a lot, but you just keep practicing, you keep going, you keep adjusting your own algorithms to become better and to beat the level.
Yeah. Online
It's
gaming
like,
really brought like a very real dynamic into it. They've created a lot of carryovers too. Like what video games might have been lacking in the social dynamic previous to online that like sports had over them. Like
mhm.
once online games existed, there like that kind of psychology came into it really quick.
Yeah,
So like finding yourself working on like a really effective team, it fucking I don't know, it's felt like you were like special forces in the military or something, like you were
yeah,
you
no
were
shit,
literally part of an elite crew, you know what I mean?
no
Like
shit, yeah.
these guys are fucking good. I can't believe they think I'm good enough to play with them. You know
Yeah,
what I
man. And
mean?
then you realize you are good and you have value there, and it creates a whole other space and other
Yeah, then you
teams and other
start
games. And
dueling them and shit, and you realize like I'm actually better than some of these dudes. This is crazy. Like holy shit.
yeah,
Yep.
Kevin said set and setting, micro and macro,
Mhm.
like for the games and shit. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
I
Even though
think
I
you
was
said,
playing games, I wasn't trying to like avoid reality. I was just like doing something. It was just what I
yeah,
wanted to be doing, you know what I mean? So it
that
was
was your
still
reality.
effective
Yeah.
medium.
See, Kevin said the whitest kids you know has a great video game skit. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
we watched some of that on one of the earlier episodes, right?
I'm gonna
The
go ahead
whitest
and
kids you
avoid the
know.
copyright strike this time, but
Yeah,
they got some good
we'll have
stuff.
to check it out though. Yeah,
Wait, bring up maybe if we find one from the blackest kids you know, it won't be copyright struck or something like that.
we'll
Yeah.
put ticker on it. Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, the hit. Let's go with like the hippiest kids you know because they won't have
Yeah.
gotten around all that legalese of copyright and such.
Yeah, Jesus, no shit. Another term, I guess it's coming to the surface. Had somebody post them. Like that's a thing. It makes sense. They're referring to the white kids, the stupid white kids that are causing trouble in the movements because apparently this one person thinks all the black people in these movements are very peaceful and don't do anything disruptive. It's the anarchids,
The anarchids.
Anarkids.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
Anarkids. The
Oh
stupid
wow.
white anarchids.
Yeah.
They're the ones
They
causing the
don't sound
problems. Just
very judgmental at all, so their opinion is probably very valuable.
probably, yeah. I remember you said Killer Instinct come out. I remember that. So Killer Instinct was like the first one since Mortal Kombat that was fucking sick. Right?
Hmm.
The way they did the moves, the
No
weapons,
doubt.
the levels, all that kind of shit. I think I played that one the most on Sega Dreamcast. Did you ever
Well,
have that console?
there is niche people who really fucking believe in Tekken and Street Fighter, and they've always been producing games. There's like it's like Tekken 10 or something at this
Yeah,
point
yeah,
in
yeah.
time, and Lord knows what Street Fighter it is. There's Street Fighter Alpha Rush Blitz 2. Like I
Yeah,
don't even know
yeah.
what number that is, but nevertheless, like yeah, Killer Instinct was huge. Sorry, what was the question, or what did you say?
Just
I was
because,
sitting
yeah,
here while
well,
you were saying, I was like, well, there was other games.
no, it's true, yeah, 'cause they're all on the same stream. But Killer Instinct, so Dreamcast. Did you ever have the Dreamcast system?
Hmm. I got a funny
Wait,
story about a Dreamcast,
do it,
actually.
do it.
It's kind of funny and like, well, it's really a story about people who do meth because it's fucking. So my
Please
buddy's
continue.
uncle had a fucking Dreamcast, right? And like we came back to his house one day, and this Dreamcast has clearly been fucked with by a tweaker. Like there's no doubt about it. And there's one other guy that lives at the house, and his name's Craig, and he's a tweaker. So put two and two together doesn't take a detective, right? But like
Yep.
we wanted Craig to come clean with it at first, so we just asked him. But then, like, he was coming up with so much tomfoolery that we decided just to like keep letting it run. And this
Uh-huh.
dude tried to convince us for like fucking 3 or 4 fucking days that the cat had knocked this Dreamcast off of the thing and that's why it wasn't working anymore and shit. And it was like
Uh-huh.
so obvious that this tweaker had taken it apart and couldn't get it back together. It's so fucking funny. Just watching him spend like an hour explain how it happened with the cat all like motivated and animated and being like, and the cat fucking came up here and he's like retelling the story. Or how did that go again, Craig? I just like, I'm having trouble picturing the cat knocking the Dreamcast off there. The cat never gets up there.
How did
So,
the cat
like,
get those tiny screws out? How did that happen? Those just popped out?
yeah, so like when it landed on the ground, it just looked like the bottom came off right here, and then you couldn't put it back on right. Like this, that's
Yeah.
just the cat. And why was it back up here when we got back? Like, why was it on the shelf like it fucking worked? I thought you said the cat knocked it down.
Do you remember? Trying to remember. I think so. Killer Instinct was probably one of the only games I remember playing on that all the time. Then the other one that came out, it came with a microphone, and it was a fish that had your face or had a face on it, and he was kind of ornery and would talk back to you. It was like an AI fish. You could interact with them, kind of like the Tamagotchi shit, right? You can feed it and whatever, and or not. And I forgot what it was called though, but yeah, I played that for a while. I
You
thought that
can
was
feed
weird.
it and shit or not.
Or not. I mean, you're just taking care of it. And it gives you shit. Like it'll talk shit at you if you're not feeding it, or you can like poke it or whatever. It's just like it was kind of this fun interactive thing. It was on Dreamcast. I think. Did you ever get into? So I knew you were more in the advanced games. I think I was more into that. This time I was playing a lot, and I think I had 2 younger siblings, so a lot of times we got games that were we could all play together and shit too. But like Mario Kart 64, you're talking about the other levels or islands where you could fall off all the time.
Yeah.
I remember Mario Kart
Played
64.
a lot of Mario Kart.
Okay, the Mario Kart 64 and the battle, because the battle was way better than Super Nintendo, right? They have a lot of cool levels and cool shit, and you had the balloons, I think, hanging over you. But there's a lot of them you could fucking fall off all the time, or on the courses. You fucking fall off, and it just fucked everything up, right? You're in first, and you fucking put back on, you're like in 7th, like, fuck!
Yeah.
You spend like 3 laps getting there, and that game was fun.
That can be super frustrating. Probably one of the funnest times I ever actually had multiplayer gaming was playing Bomberman with like a room full of people.
Yeah?
That shit was like so exciting. I don't know why. It was
I never got
great.
into that one. I never.
But this was like not even like your
Smash
standard Bomberman. I haven't played Smash Brothers that much, despite the fact that I'm very familiar with it and like how it works, but I haven't hardly played it at all. I don't really. I don't have a lot of brawler experience. That's the kind of game that is, a brawler.
Yeah.
And I don't really play brawlers very much.
Okay,
so,
that makes sense. Yeah, I was really into that one.
There's guys that are so fucking legendary at Smash Brothers. It's insane.
Oh, it
is insane how good they are.
Especially nowadays. I remember when it came out. That's when it's like, if you're good at it amongst your friends, you're good. There's no like online really interactive gaming or like all that other shit, or filming your playing and putting on YouTube or Twitter. I mean, that shit didn't exist. So it's just you got good about all your friends you play with and whatever. It's like who the best player is and the best characters, and then you get really good. And it doesn't matter what character you use, you fucking whoop everybody's ass because you just know how to play the game.
Yeah.
They have the fucking little sister come in and kick your ass by smashing buttons, man. I swear, every time, any game, the little sister that just fucking smashes buttons. How the fuck do they win?
Well, this is where we see the separation. Like if you're the best at a game out of all of your friends, you're probably like maybe mediocre among the actual pros. Like you have to actually like compete against them, see the shit that they're doing, incorporate their tactics and shit like that as well, until you like actually really get like the super meta god gamer going on.
And that's why it's cool. Yeah, when you find a new friend or you meet someone that like also played the game and like, fuck man, you gotta come over, let's play. And then they actually kick your ass, like awesome, because you're used to playing people you just kick, that you win. It gets boring. So it's nice.
I used to play this game called Tribes, and like it was kind of standard for people to like record the matches and then post them. It was part of like the competitive thing that you had to record your gameplay and then post it. And like I spent, like NBA professional levels of time watching quote unquote game footage. Like I would just watch the way like I would sit there and watch videos of, this was all like capture the flag. I'd sit there and watch videos of like exactly the routes that the cappers ran, the flag captures, and where they would actually end up landing on the ground, because I played like this class called heavy offense that would like shoot these large mortars, but oftentimes while I was like making my way to the other base to destroy it, I would be able to like launch mortars onto the routes that the capper was running in the event that they were running with the flag. So I would sit there and study their routes, like precision, and then go in games and set beacons at the location that they were hitting the fucking ground, and then run my routes and try and hit my beacons with the mortars and just sit there and fucking practice for like hours and hours and hours and hours. So it did end up with me making some fucking incredible highlight reel shots. So, it was worth it. But like there was one point in time where I literally saved a game because it's fucking 6-6, cap outs at 7. Their dude's like, he's flying into the stand. I'm coming at the base. I launch a mortar that's literally like 700 meters. And as he's about to land on the flag, like he's still maybe 20 feet out in the air, fucking bloop, right on his fucking head. He explodes. Flag flies in the air. Our capper comes in. It ends up on the arc that our capper is dropping onto their flag. So he returns in midair as he's going in to grab their flag, grabs their flag, and I'm already in position to basically just mortar the fuck out of their flag stand and kill everybody that's running off from it. We end up getting the cap from this game, but it was just like ridiculous. Like I literally jumped out of my seat when this mortar hit and fucking screamed as loud as I could, like, "Oh my fucking god!" Just so fucking animated, dude. Like I was so fucking into that game. I literally practiced like a lot. The team that I was on practiced together for like 8 hours a day. It was ridiculous. We just sat there and ran scrimmages and ran routes and fucking.
That's just fun though, man. I mean, you get a new avenue to do teamwork and to just create your own personal algorithms to master the game in some unique way like that, and that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, or try. There's still teams that we got our ass beat fucking too much, So.
Yeah, as it goes. I mean, no matter who you are in the world, there's always someone better, I guess, unless you until you're that guy. I mean, that's with anything, and then someone takes the title, and
and even at top end, it's like it's never guaranteed. You know what I mean? Even if you're in the NBA and you're on a top team in the NBA that makes the playoffs every year, like it only takes like a couple things to go wrong, and sometimes they're not even on the court for you to like, well, this year ain't our year, And there was certain teams where it just felt like something was always going wrong. You know what I mean? Like it's like when we play against these guys, for some reason, like one of our fucking light defense is always like laggy, and that's not good for your light defense. You want like your lowest ping people on light defense, or like just weird shit happening, or random unluckiness where it's like, oh, I fucking I died with the flag, but where the flag ended up flying to all randomly, as in like some impossible to grab spot, so they can just like stand there on top of the flag. We're never gonna fucking get it,
right?
Like shit like this. So
that sucks.
And I mean, at top level, like the people you're playing against, if they see something like that happen and you're going like, oh, fuck, that sucks, they're like, oh, fuck, this sucks for them. Let's exploit the shit out of that.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? Like they're making sure that they're getting every single ounce of value out of that little tiny random mistake that you had no control over. So there was also, I mean, I got to give credit to guys that played Tribes. There was a lot of dudes that were really capable of making the big play. Like it wasn't one of those. It was a kind of a niche game, but the people who played it were very serious about it, and it was the only game of its kind in the sense that it was like a first-person shooter, but you had jetpacks and it went very, very fast, and so like you didn't play some other game. If you thought like Tribes was like the epitome of first-person shooters, you didn't really play another shooter. I was one of the very few people who like also played Counter-Strike, but it was actually problematic. I would have been better at Counter-Strike if I didn't play Tribes, and I would have been better at Tribes if I didn't play Counter-Strike, because like the aim and the movement in between them didn't have a lot of crossover. Like your use of your peripherals, you were more comfortable with using your peripherals, but like fucking Tribes, you were moving at 300 kilometers an hour all the time, and in Counter-Strike, you were never going faster than 2 miles an hour. It's all walking pace. You know what I mean? So it's like a totally different game.
Yeah, it's like getting in different games, different seasons, to acquire different skill sets or different dynamics. I remember the PS2, there's a game called Time Splitters 2 specifically. Does that ring a bell to you at all?
I think I remember seeing it on the shelf somewhere sometime. I never played it though.
Yeah, so it's a first-person shooter, but I super got into that one for a while. That was really good. And then Legend of Legaia 2, which is an RPG. PS2.
Yeah, the Gaia games, they're pretty popular.
Legaia? Legend of Legaia?
Oh, not Legend of Gaia?
Legend of Legaia. Legaia.
Is this like some kind of Asian knockoff of the power of the of the prominent title Legend of Gaia.
I didn't even know that one existed, but I was into this one. It was the second one, number 2. But I played that RPG through like, I don't know, eight or 10 times. Like over the course of years. I don't think I own it anymore or whatever. But yeah, that was a really fun RPG.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Final Fantasy series took the cake for me on the single player RPGs,
Yeah. I
particularly
never got
Final
into it.
Fantasy VII.
Okay, yeah, that was the big. Is that the wait? Did he have that giant sword the whole time, or is that the big thing in number 7?
He definitely had a big sword. You could get different swords, but
Yeah, the big famous one was on the covers of all of it. The giant fucking blade, the like square blade with the sharp end. It was like what? I
yeah,
mean, I don't know, relatively like a foot wide. If it was real in real life, just
yeah.
massive.
Final Fantasy's primary character, or Final Fantasy VII's primary character, Cloud Strife, is kind of the
Ah,
face of the Final Fantasy series at this point in time. He's the guy that has that sword. It's called a Buster
yeah,
Sword.
it's a cool sword.
I spent 120 hours of in-game time on Final Fantasy VII just breeding chocobos, not playing any of the rest of the game. Literally just collecting and breeding chocobos, trying to get a gold one. 120 hours of my life.
Well, it probably wasn't just doing that. I remember when I was playing. There's seasons I get into playing games, but I was always watching. Okay, I remember there was for a season I was into. I think what Need for Speed. I think I really got into that game, Need for Speed 2. I think on PS2, and I was playing that while I was watching the Stargate series, Stargate SG-1 series, like binge watching that while I'm playing the game. So I had once up on the TV or once on my laptop or something. And this was like I don't know 2000 early 2000s. But I mean, I did that for weeks, maybe months, and I plow through these games while I'm also plowing through a series. And Stargate SG-1 has tons of the esoteric stuff that's out nowadays, and secret government programs, and mythology, and a bunch of other shit. But that was super stimulating in that regard. If I was just watching that, but the field out while playing games, I did that a lot. The multitasking. It feels like efficient. I'm sitting there doing that, and I don't feel like I'm necessarily wasting my time, even though I could be doing other things. I feel like I'm getting 2 things done at once. It's stimulating me cognitively and imaginatively and this other dynamic, but also building cars and different dynamics there and learning routes, and I don't know. That was cool shit, man. Good times. Oh, Zach muted. He must be switching back, or
I really like the Need for Speed games. A lot of my history learning actually came from playing this game series called Total War, or also Civilization, just because like it had so many pointers to stuff in history that then like while I was playing it, I was like interested in history. So on my other monitor, I'd be watching like stuff about ancient history or medieval or warfare
yeah.
history, shit like this, and I ended
This
up just
this
like learning so
the
much about it from that.
that civilization game. Are you talking about the one where you pick a civilization or a tribe or a people, and then you build either on the whatever world or map you pick or another world, but you build your city. You start out with your deploy team that
That's
your
the basic gist of it. Some settlers, and then
yeah.
you're trying to grow to a bigger
Yeah, those
civilization.
games are awesome. I love those games. I played a lot of those games.
Yeah, those ones are pretty solid if you like that
Yeah,
kind of strategy.
I
Sometimes I
love
like
that
that
shit.
kind of strategy.
Yeah, it just depends
Sometimes
on the
looking for
time of the
something
season.
entirely different.
Yeah, totes.
Yeah, I wish I I wish I had a game that I was actually psyched on right now. The state of gaming is kind of not doing
Yeah.
so great right now. Got to be honest. So
At the same time, there's so many out there that like you can find these niche. The difference nowadays, I mean, the fact that we're able to relate on a lot of these games. I mean, most of the kids growing up now, I imagine, like if you and your friends, maybe, but there's just such a diversity of games and apps. And like, God, I was in the Clash of Clans for a while. I would love that, and we got teams going on that, and like that was super fun for a while. Then it's like I'm over it, and still a thing. I mean, they progressed the game and like advanced it a lot. There's a lot of money in that space too. That you can buy and upgrades and whatever. But I don't know.
yeah,
They run their course, man. Stuff comes into my awareness that maybe some people are into, but that other people have never heard of and will never hear of in their entire life, no matter how popular it was. You know?
yeah. I feel like there's just too many fucking games
Right.
at this point in time. I think they release too many games without making the games good enough, and you end up with like a bloated system that
Mm.
so much of it is just not even worth giving it 5 minutes. Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's
Totally.
honestly, like I could fucking rant for so many hours on the state of gaming. It's just ridiculous. But because it's kind of like an emergent problem that's happened over time that was inevitable, predictable, and avoidable, but has not been avoided. Instead, the developers and publishers decided to go more the angle of the cash grab rather than the quality
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the cash grab has not done a good thing for gaming. There's so many fucking games out there now that are obviously a cash grab, and
Right.
I think it actually like kind of jades people out, but then also at the same time encourages them to go and like try something else, so they're
Mm-hmm.
not like dedicated to one game. You know, like back
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
long time ago, if you wanted to play an RPG and you wanted to do it online, you had two fucking choices. You played EverQuest or you played Ultima Online. There wasn't something else that you played. Like there
Right.
was other games that were from like the last generation that like maybe people still played. We'll say like Meridian 59 or something like that. Most people have
Yeah.
never even heard of that game.
So the ones
But
you're mentioning are the precursors to like Diablo 2. That was one I got into.
yeah, I mean, fucking even honestly, even like Diablo 1
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't know, it was pretty fucking niche. And it was barely online. Like you could LAN it, you know, but you
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
play it with other people like across the world. And then Diablo 2, again, like a weird kind of online because you're like going into these rooms where there's
Yeah.
like 8 people maximum. And then, you know, they added like the BattleNet chat rooms and you kind of got some continuity of
Right.
community there. But that still definitely wasn't the same as Ultima Online or
Gotcha.
EverQuest, where it's like there's a world, everybody's in it all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you started getting this diversity, well, I don't know. It just gave people too many options. Korea, Japan, and China started spilling over with their RPGs. These motherfuckers make a new RPG every 38 seconds. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. So I can't even tell you how many, like, Chinese or Korean ported martial arts RPGs I've fucked around with for like 3 days and then quit forever.
Mm.
Like, so many of them. There's just endless amounts of them. And, like, the
Yeah.
idea is pretty cool, but still, I don't think anyone's ever done it right, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because everybody that plays that wants, like, this fighting game combat in an MMORPG world, and, like,
Mm.
these two things just don't mix with technology, even as it is now. Yeah. The server
Yeah.
lag that would be with that, the servers would need to be real small. Doing that in like an MMORPG setting where there's like 1,000 people on a shard, or worse yet, in a fucking zone trying to fight each other at the same time. Yeah, right. That's running like shit. There's no way you're doing
Yeah.
that. Realize like inside of top level fighting games, motherfuckers are worrying about frames, dude. They're not even talking
Yeah.
about seconds anymore. They're talking about frames. So
Right.
like that I have like if I do this move at the time that you do that move, I can end up not being hit by your move because this move grants an invincibility frame. So I have to use it at the exact right time so that when you connect with me, I'm in that iframe. And that's what top level fighting games is about. It's all about the manipulation of iframes
Mm.
entirely. And like doing that shit requires a very, very quick connection. Even like online fighting game tournaments that are 1v1 suffer massively from these latency problems.
Mm.
Massively. So like the idea of having thousands of people in the world and 500 of them are fighting each other in like a Killer Instinct style
Yeah.
fucking that level of intensity kind of battle, that ain't fucking running on no internet that we have today. You're tripping. That ain't
Huh.
happening. Netcode, as far as we can program it, ain't gonna handle that anytime soon,
Huh.
honestly. So
Interesting.
there's a lot of limitations inside of like this massive online space that has to do with just like a server's ability to handle how much different calculations and data needs to be transmitted at the same time. Realize even with like
Yeah.
WoW, they use like what would basically be the function of like a supercomputer, meaning there's a cluster of computers that are all like working together to handle the load of the server. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even like, yeah, like I mean, that has latency problems. That's the whole
Yeah.
reason why they do like so much of their content as instanced content, because
Mm.
then they can basically have this so that that entire instance is hosted on a computer of its own. And so when you load on into that instance, you're only on a server with the other people that are also in that instance. And
Mm.
realize like even still with that World of Warcraft raid zones, if you've ever been in a progression, like a world progression level World of Warcraft guild, you know that like when it's progression time and there's like a new expansion out and you're pushing through the new dungeon, that motherfucker is laggy. It is laggy. That's part of the difficulty of the content if you're doing it in like the first, week that it's out. It's
Interesting.
like that there's 27, 28 other guilds playing 24 hours a day that are in
Yeah.
this instance the entire time, fighting bosses the whole time, and this server can't fucking handle this hardly. So we got a lot of restrictions still.
Well, on that note, my tablet's actually going to die here shortly. Kevin had to dip out too, so he's off to keep writing, doing music, and make blue juice ice cubes.
Yeah,
Which,
I'm hoping that works out for him, and then he can
Yeah.
tell me about it, and then I can have my
I
world
know it.
revolutionized.
No doubt, man. All right, well, that was a good show.
All right,
2
dude.
hours, 18
Well,
minutes.
I hope you have a wonderful night. Anybody that's still here, thanks for chilling. We'll see you next time around, which is what day is it? It's Monday, so it's Wednesday. 2 days from now.
Yeah.
We'll see you then. All right.
We will be there. All right, have a good night, Zach. Love you guys. Take care. We'll see you next
Love
time.
y'all. Bye bye.